Are you also tired of one-size-fits-all weight loss plans? Meet Noom, the personalized solution that meets you where you are. Noom is able to understand your unique needs, from dietary restrictions to medical concerns. Unlike restrictive programs, Noom embraces your lifestyle and choices. Discover a sustainable approach to weight loss, tailored just for you. Honestly, Noom felt like it was made for me. It's not just about what I eat, it's about understanding why. With Noom, I've learned so much about myself and built healthier habits that stick. It's all about progress, not perfection. Say goodbye to restrictive diets and experience the Noom app for yourself with personalized lessons and expert coaching. Noom's psychology and biology-based approach has helped over 5.2 million people achieve their goals. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. And check out Noom's first ever cookbook, The Noom Kitchen, for 100 healthy and delicious recipes to promote better living. Available to buy now wherever books are sold.
What you listening to, son?
Howdy, y'all, and welcome to TalKing of the Hill, where the Queen of Hearts isn't very smart. I'm your host, the rat hair in your tuna, Bob Mackey, and this is the Talking Simpsons Network's chronological exploration of King of the Hill, who is here with me today, as always.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and it's like watching a TV, only the show is about wet clothes.
And this month's episode is all about Hank's dirty laundry. This week's episode, or this month's episode, originally aired on March 1st, 1998, and as always, Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real-world history.
This is Hank Hill with the news.
Bobby! Dark City debuts in theaters while Titanic reigns. The video game Burning Rangers hits the Sega Saturn, and My Heart Will Go On is #1 on the Billboard charts. So yeah.
Still, was the previous December, November was Titanic, correct?
It debuted at the end of November, and here 4 months later, it is still very much the #1 movie. Like all these... even big movies that are like, oh yeah, Wedding Singer is #2. Essentially, it is #1, except Titanic just won't go away, and it's still #1.
Have not seen Titanic yet. Have not seen Dark City yet.
Whoa.
And we were just talking about Roger Ebert before the recording, and that's actually was one of his favorite movies. One of, I believe, 2 commentaries he recorded. One was for Citizen Kane, one was for Dark City, and they used those commentaries to build his voice.
That's right.
When he lost his voice.
Yeah, his computer voice generator, man. His interest in it is what got me to watch Dark City later. I didn't watch it when it was new. And it is, I think too, it also got a new lease on life after The Matrix came out, because it is kind of Matrix-y about a year before The Matrix came out. And I believe some of The Matrix was filmed on Dark City sets, like they just kept the sets up and filmed there. I think the rooftops in The Matrix are from Dark City, but not to spoil Dark City, similar kind of thing as The Matrix as well.
And people said, anti-Matrix folks were saying it was a ripoff of Dark City, but Dark City, nobody really saw it. It was kind of a flop. I'm seeing it just made its budget back, and that's it. But I think it's gone on to become a cult favorite.
You know, it really helped the Wachowski sisters that a lot of people had not seen a lot of the source material of The Matrix.
The inspirations.
Yeah, inspirations.
For The Matrix.
Lots of every creator takes inspiration from lots of things, and I will at least from the anime side of things, the Wachowski sisters did pay it back to some degree with the Animatrix stuff, I'd say.
I was thinking it was a glorious time for filmmakers until maybe around 2004, because you could just steal anything from an anime and say, well, no one's going to see this.
Yeah.
And Satoshi Kon was pretty mad about... Requiem for a Dream. Yeah, there were some, inspirations from that movie as well. I think a scene from Perfect Blue was just in that movie.
Well, I have brand new opinions on that, because I did watch the French documentary on the life of Satoshi Kon called The Illusionist. It came out last year. Really, really great. They talked to almost everybody I'd want them to talk to they don't talk to his widow, and they don't talk to Katsuro Otomo, and they don't talk to Susumu Hirasawa, but they talk to a ton of other people, and that also includes Darren Aronofsky, and that is the one, everything else I love in it, But when they talk to him, I don't want to call him a liar, but I do not believe when he says like, oh, I think I like met him and asked him if it'd be cool if I could do this. And he thought it was cool. And he said he liked it. And I actually met him before I filmed Requiem for a Dream and all this stuff. I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. I think because what is not said in the movie, because I don't think the movie wants to call one of the most famous people who spoke in the documentary a liar. But Satoshi Kon was very clear in some of his blogs posts that were in Japanese. They weren't in English, so not everybody knows them. But he was very clear of like, no, this hurt my feelings. This guy stole my scene from the movie, which I storyboarded myself, and he just took it.
I mean, not to go on too long about this, but Darren Aronofsky, he's not like Michael Bay popular, but he is successful. Satoshi Kon, never successful.
Never successful.
Critically acclaimed, but none of his movies ever made money.
Yeah, it's
to the point where his posthumous work will never be made because it's like, well, we can't make any money from this, so why bother?
It's kind of the very heartbreaking ending of that documentary. Which I was glad I saw it. It didn't correct anything. There was nothing after I watched it where I said, boy, I wish I knew this when we did our Millennium Actress podcast, because I think I knew pretty much everything that was in that documentary. But there were some cool new interviews in it.
We're having some high culture discussion in an episode about low culture arts.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, and the other thing, that Burning Rangers on Sega Saturn, that was a whiffaroo from Yuji Naka, and one of not his last.
Never played it, although I did play the Burning Rangers song on Samba de Amigo.
That's funny.
And it was like what? It was like firefighters that were like Sentai, like Power Ranger kind of people.
Yes, it was a Sentai meets firefighters type deal, and it was on the Knight's engine, and you played it because it was, because what else were you going to play on the Sega Saturn?
What else were you going to play in 1998?
And also it was like, the Sonic team made a new game and you were just waiting for them to do Sonic.
They refused to make another Sonic game until their demands are met.
On the Dreamcast, they finally would the next year. But yeah, that Burning Rangers game, the Saturn does its best to make fire appear, but it doesn't really do a great job.
It's barely holding together in that game. But yes, this episode, Hank's Dirty Laundry. Let's talk about the director first. We have a new director, and that is Sean Cashman. So this is a fairly common story on this show. He's another one of those Simpsons guys who would have graduated to director if he had stayed on The Simpsons.
Okay, another of the Wes Archer knows the best artists or a lot of good artists he worked with on The Simpsons and said, you're ready to direct something. Come over here.
Or you're sick of drawing these yellow people. So
probably getting later animatic rewrites than you do on King of the Hill, I bet. I wonder which I guess it'd be probably hard for Wes Archer to answer, which was harder to work on or had more demanding producers who make changes late, Simpsons or
I bet it was Simpsons, because Mike Judge and Greg Daniels, the showrunners, came from an animation background, so they understand how animation works from the very beginning of the show.
And then how would that compare to Rick and Morty? Because I always think back to our pal Ian Jones-Cordy saying he could not imagine a more design intensive show to work on than Rick and Morty.
Well, that's why you get 10 new episodes every 18 months.
Yep, yeah.
But Sean Cashman, he started as a character layout artist on The Simpsons with 1993's The Last Temptation of Homer in season 5. And towards the end of his tenure there, he was assistant director on episodes in seasons 8, 9, and 10. So if he had stayed on, he probably would have been directing in seasons 10, 11, and 12, and so on.
Oh, sure. But man, so then that must have... Was he one of the Simpson returners, or did he stay on a different path?
He never returned to The Simpsons.
Wow.
So he jumped right into King of the Hill, late second season, just became a director. He did not do anything before that on King of the Hill. And he directed 10 episodes before leaving in season 7 of King of the Hill in 2002.
Wow, man. See, if you seems like at the Simpsons factory, if you leave, you're not always welcome back to return as a director.
I don't think he wanted to go back because he was really into more cartoony stuff after he left. So it's weird that he was on King of the Hill for so long, because the next thing he did was direct a ton of episodes of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Whoa.
So a show the exact opposite in style of King of the Hill, both in the tone of the comedy and the design of the characters, the very flat gross out characters of that show.
We heard that about the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender, who had worked on Mission Hill. They got tired of even though it had more prestige, they got tired of the sitcom style. They wanted to get back to more cartooning, though in their case, more anime style cartooning than UPA style Billy and Mandy.
Yeah, I think he did like cartoony stuff more than King of the Hill, because other things he worked on are things like Chowder, which is a very cartoony show,
Oh, yeah.
very overlooked. Check it out, I believe, on HBO Max. And Randy Cunningham, Ninth Grade Ninja, and Sean Cashman's most recent role. He is a retake director and timing supervisor on Big City Greens, another very cartoony show.
Yeah, that's good.
About a Southern fried family.
I love that show, man. Yeah, that's also interesting that all these guys, but when they get to that age, you don't direct as much. You're timing director, which does seem like a very expertise-driven role. Like timing is very important and I think an in-demand skill from older guys like him.
I think we overlook it, but it is an important role. But
that's our pal Thad said that timing is directing, like that. That was a thing he had heard from
basically
other directors. Yeah,
that's what it seems like. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know about animation, and most people don't, I don't blame them. There's a lot of things you need to know about to live.
And it's boring, and it's not, and you don't even get paid well.
Yeah, what are you, a timer? What do you set by a piece of paper with a stopwatch? Well, yeah, kind of.
How do you direct? I love on that one commentary where David Silverman is asked by by the voice of Roger Myers of just like, what does directing a cartoon do anyway?
Yeah.
You just tell a cartoon to do stuff, and
they tell him to dance around.
Silverman just goes like, boy, I've only had to answer this question 1,000,000 times in my life.
Do you direct Homer? Just
Yes.
Homer. This episode, though, Hank's Dirty Laundry, I think I got the pun for the first time because, well, no, I understood the meaning. It's like, oh, his dirty laundry is being aired out. That's what's happening in this episode, but it's literally about he needs to buy a dryer too. So it's one of those, not as complicated as 3 Days of the Condo, but it's still a very good pun, I think.
Yeah, there's the title and like two big jokes in this I didn't fully grasp until this podcast viewing of it. I was like, oh, this is a consistent message on our King of the Hill podcast, but like, this show is smarter than you thought it was.
Yeah. Two of the best jokes in the series so far, and one of the filthiest jokes, if not the filthiest joke in the show, is in this episode.
Yeah, a little bit of the Beavis and Butthead comes into this.
If you thought Hank trying to poop was silly and gross out, wait till you hear what happens next on the show.
And yeah, this episode, it really feels like a Judge kind of thing too, because it's like, it not only mixes, porno, and it lets him make all the kind of like boing type jokes that he would do on Beavis and Butthead, but also it is about the computers have taken over and like a fear of bureaucracy, and that you lose control of your life as this the Matrix takes over, I suppose, in a way.
This is the libertarianism I agree with when it comes to Mike Judge, but this episode is made before the Patriot Act made us all inside a computer, and cameras pointed at us no matter where we go. So it's a very innocent time period for America when you could not just be logged in somewhere or, like constantly having your phone ring 30 times a day. Yeah. Telemarketers, that will never, I think we just can't use our phones anymore. That will never end.
What happens to Hank in this is supposed to be like an accident, or like, oh, this doesn't normally happen, but this is just your life now. Everyone, we didn't listen to Hank's warning at the post office later in this episode.
We talked about this like before recording recently. You just don't answer your phone anymore.
Nope.
Unless you know who it's from, you just don't pick it up, because it will always be someone talking to you about your car warranty, someone trying to get your social security number. Somebody is always trying to rob and steal from you using your phone, and nothing will be done about it.
We're the IRS, and if you don't give us your social security number right now, we will arrest you. And a warrant is like, yeah.
They're not just preying on old people anymore.
Sometimes when the programming gets me with like a non-English language automated message, that's why I'm like, you guys need to fit. You should know I don't speak this language. If you're watching me this closely, then you should know this is a miss.
Or if someone with a very heavy accent says they have a white name, like, oh, this is Jim Smith at the IRS or whatever. I'm not going to do the accent, by the way, but I'm like, well, you could try a little harder, couldn't you? Like, you're making yourself look bad in front of me.
Well, my only note on the fear of the libertarian dread of this is that the machinery to keep track of you isn't run that carefully anymore, and nobody's even trying. Like,
no,
so.
This is going to be a lot of preamble, but it drives me crazy. I'm going to be 40 very soon, so I am turning into Hank. Where it's just like, yeah, your information is just leaked everywhere every year, and you receive no compensation. Remember Equifax?
Yep, yeah. They were just ruined by it. All of our passwords are just gone.
And they still exist. They didn't have to pay anyone any money. And it's like, well, instead of giving you money, too many people ask for money. So you're going to get some coverage.
Oof, man.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. I had a similar thing with a online t-shirt company I bought from. Don't worry, it's not the one that we use to sell our t-shirts. They've been good. But this was a different one where I bought a t-shirt. And I then had my credit card stolen, like $3,000 of charges I had to undo. And only 2 months later did I then get a message like, our credit cards were breached and whoopsie,
you might want to spend about 2 hours of your day getting a new card and changing everything you have automatic payments on. Yeah, one final thing. We do live in the post-Beast world. And I remember a year ago or 2 years ago, so we used to be in the games industry. There's this convention called E3. It's the biggest thing of the year. Every games journalist goes there. And one year, whoopsie doodle, all of the information about everyone attending was leaked. And these are people that bad people send death threats to. Did E3 still happen? Yes. Was anyone given any money to make up for, their lives being intruded upon? No.
Yeah.
So this is just what we're living in now. People can just steal your information and you get nothing out of it. You get nothing in return. It's just like, sorry, just spend 20 minutes fixing your entire life if you have time.
Well, and I think this stuff with the Beast too, that it on a reason when we're recording this episode of Chapo Trap House, which we enjoy, they talk about this is a point Felix made that was so brilliant about how, well, information and selling it to people is one of the few businesses America has left. We just have to steal your fucking info and sell it to somebody else. That's all we can do.
We don't make anything, and we haven't for a long time.
No oil, no nothing. Yeah, can't do it.
But this that's why I like this episode. Just 97, such an innocent time. I mean, there were terrible things happening that I was ignorant of, but anything post Patriot Act is just it's the post Beast world.
Yeah, and you can't even complain about it because it's after 9/11. Also this pre-internet era of porno is funny to think about. These jokes are ones you can't make anymore because it's not what porno is anymore. And also I spent 5 years working as a video store clerk, 4-ish, and I was on the other side of the cash register that Hank experiences here. But I never screwed over somebody like they screw over Hank. That never happens. But I have theories about that.
Let's talk more about that when we get to the scene of the video store. And I have a bunch of thoughts about the cusp of internet pornography, the analog to digital changeover in the world of pornography. Let the record show this guy knows a lot about his porno. Kind of. Let's start the episode.
It's a careful dance in this episode, just like with Bill, to reveal how much we do or don't know about pornography.
So we open on this idyllic spring day. Hank is driving home, humming America the Beautiful.
So sweet. I love Bill's excitement. He wants him to honk like he's a big rig driver. And then when he does, he's just like...
we're at Giddy Bill, and I like it. It's not just flat affect depression Bill. The Bill we love came out of his shell in this season. And I did this as a kid and annoyed my parents. When you would be driving on the highway, you just go in the back window and do this.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun, man. You don't want to know about the lives of those truck drivers. It's just superhero truck driver. I love it.
Actually, my sister did it once when her friend was in the back seat and they were little kids, and instead of honking, the driver showed them porn. He pushed porn up against the windshield.
Jesus Christ.
So that, kids.
Oh man, boy. And everybody thought things were nicer back then compared to now.
No, the world of trucking, there's some dark sides to it, people. I love Bill laughing giddily. He gives a thumbs up and gives a salute to Hank with his beer.
I also like Dale. The story not being told of Dale with a metal detector in his front lawn. What's he looking for? What's he thinks
he's looking for bugs. Peggy is inhaling deeply of the clean laundry. She takes it off the line, and Hank sees Peggy waving from the yard, but all he can see beyond her is his undergarments, his personal private undergarments out in public, just hanging for the entire neighborhood to know that he wears them.
He wears them. I love that. And this is called Hank's Dirty Laundry, and we start with clean laundry. It's airing out, but she just washed it. The dryer is broken, making this clean laundry. But Hank doesn't want the most plain of white boxers to be seen by his neighbors.
And he's very upset about this. We hear why this is happening. Peggy normally doesn't hang laundry out to dry, but the dryer is broken. It's broken so bad it actually moistens the clothes now. And Hank agrees to buy a new dryer after this public embarrassment. He takes down a sheet to reveal a nearly naked Luann and then hangs the sheet back up.
I love that because it's Luann is never ashamed of her body, like in that way. She's not, a regular show would have had her be the one to go like eek and cover up or whatever, but she's just like, hey, and Hank's like, ugh! Like he is the one who does not want to see. I mean, also like Luann is not a sexual being to him. He does not think of her that way, and seeing her in her underpants doesn't help him with that.
Well, there is one episode a few years later that's all about people seeing Luann naked.
That's true.
A lot.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite shots of her. After Bobby catches her and she moves the curtain thinking she's covered up, she just goes like "phoo" and not covering, but she moved it too far and Bobby is still just agape at her.
There's a lot of fun screaming in that scene.
But I think Peggy did this on purpose, knowing it would embarrass Hank enough to finally buy a new dryer. I think she did this knowingly.
She knows him well. So we're at Megalomart, where the entire season will end up, and some very important facts are laid down in this episode. We'll get to those soon, but they're looking at dryers. Bobby, being a little weird kid, is way into the idea of getting a new dryer. I know I was into the idea of any new appliance. Like, oh boy, a new refrigerator.
I did really like doing appliance shopping with parents. That like 3 times it ever happened. I think we never, but on the opposite side, my dad hated, not unlike Hank Hill, he did not like buying new appliances. Like we had it, our dryer, it could dry, but it moved so much. We could afford it. This was not a situation of like, I'm saying we were too poor because listeners have heard me say how many toys I got.
All the cruises.
All these things. But it was that my dad was cheap about appliances. Same with, we got one new fridge ever, and it was because the other one was far too broken. But usually we did not go shopping for new appliances. And if I wanted to get if I was like, oh, look at this, Dad, a fancy one, he'd be like, no.
Well, like Bobby, I coveted the washers and dryers where you could see the clothes spinning around.
And we never had that growing up either. They were always the clothes.
Me too. It was a mystery. What was happening in there? There is a cut scene, though, on the DVD. There's more than usual in this episode. It's a fun Hank joke where we see the Hills walking to Megalomart. Hank has a shopping cart, but he collects other shopping carts on the way in, and he pushes them in, and he sneers at the lazy teen hanging out outside smoking a cigarette. Now, I'll say, if you don't return your shopping cart to the proper area, you don't have to bring it back to the store. But if you just leave it in the parking lot, you are worse than Hitler. As someone who had to return those carts, I often I don't go to grocery stores that have like big parking lots anymore, and I'm not driving anymore. But usually when I would take a loose cart from the parking lot and use that to shop, like make their lives a bit easier.
Yeah.
Because I'm a saint.
You're one of the good ones, Bob.
I've just been in that position, just people like just leaving their carts willy-nilly. And
just
it's
like, I'm done with this, whatever, you deal with it. Isn't it your job? You get it.
I really want Joe Biden to crack down on this.
I do like the way Hank in that deleted scene like gives him the stink eye. Like that is so very Hank. That could have been in any episode. Like Hank is the exact guy who wouldn't just grab one, but grab all of them because it's the right thing to do.
And this is another one of Mike Judge's, I guess, one of his gripes, I think, overall. You see it in Beavis and Butthead. You know what? I agree. And I don't know if he's, finding the right target for his problem here, but his thing is, and I'm taking a long time to explain this because I'm trying to articulate it, that American service has declined because nobody wants to pay for skilled workers. So all the people running everything are just teens who don't know what they're doing and don't care because they're not being paid enough to. And you see that in Beavis and Butthead when there's like, they do the same scene in King of the Hill where Hank is like, do you know what a hammer is?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson is asking the same questions in Beavis and Butthead to teens who don't know what they're talking about. So this is a big thing throughout Mike Judge's work. It's just like nobody wants to hire anybody who knows what they're talking about, which is why service is awful everywhere in America.
And will eventually explode the Megalomart.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think it's such a great breaking point for the American consumer that is perfectly represented in a guy like Hank Hill or Mr. Anderson, just going like, can't you help me? You people used to be good at helping, but guys like Hank Hill think it is a personal failing on the one employee that got hired, not the business deciding they want to hire the cheapest possible person they can.
It does feel like Hank has the wrong target in mind, but I think the show has the right target because they're not a fan of Megalomart and their hiring practices.
When I worked at when I worked at the movie theater too, I felt that I got too good at it, and it was like they don't care that I've memorized every command in the system and could teach people things. They don't care. They're like, if you want to stick around and know all this stuff, that's fine by me, but we're not paying you more.
Yeah, they'd rather just have someone in that could pay minimum wage again and just you'll learn on the job. So there's a very fun scene coming up next with our first clip where a clerk comes up, asks Hank if he has any questions, and Hank winks at Peggy and actually becomes the salesman himself in our first clip.
Could you tell me the difference between an electric dryer and a propane dryer?
Sure, a propane dryer costs a little more.
Only at first. When you factor in the lifetime cost of ownership, propane comes out on top. Let me run through the numbers. A family of 4 does 3.5 loads a week.
Hey.
Hello, Buckley.
Hey.
When did you get promoted to greeter?
Yesterday.
And if the current trend in electric rates continues, you'll be glad you did. Here's my card in case you have any other questions.
Can we just take the spin more, please?
Would you be interested in applying for a Megalo card?
No thanks. The last thing I need is another credit card. I've already got one.
Hold on. No money down, no interest for 6 months, and 10% off our first purchase.
10% off? Well, Chuck Mangione supports it, and his diet shakes did okay by me.
What I remember about, I think, Snow Job, there were a few deleted scenes in which that was the joke about propane, where the people who were endorsing it had to admit up front, yes, it costs more, but over time...
He's like, over time, if you do math. They cut it. I remember, too, they cut for that episode, Buck going like, well, I ain't got 3 years for it to save me any money.
That's right, because all of his appliances are electric. Yeah.
Which also so it's more inconvenient and costs more up front, but you have to tell yourself, well, technically I did save $30 eventually by being inconvenienced, maybe. Yeah.
And we see Buckley established as working at the Megalomart as a greeter, and this is very important because he will play a pivotal role in the season finale. And you know what? We don't even see Buckley that much in the series.
Yeah, I remember seeing him more.
Although after he dies, he remains in the intro, and when they reanimate it for HD, he's still in the intro picking up Luann.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I guess it's assumed they're like, well, he's got a helmet on. That could be any kind of numerous losers that Luann throws her love at.
Maybe it's Lucky.
Oh, yeah.
It could be Lucky.
Lucky's got a similar body type,
yes.
I think. Yeah.
But I was going to bring up the idea of a greeter was a new funny comedic concept because it is technically, I guess, for Buckley, the lowest skill job they could give him. But in reality, these jobs are not given to, teenagers. They're given to retirees who the system failed them. They have no money. They need a part-time job, so they have to go to Walmart and wave at people.
Yeah. And it makes me sad. I see those waivers, and I know that you should be just sitting at home, being racist or whatever.
Tying flies. Who knows? I mean, in the 90s, there was a push to get seniors back to work. That's why in Lisa versus Malibu Stacy, there's a plot about Grandpa going to work for Krusty Burger because there were commercials saying, seniors, you can work too. It's like, well, didn't they work their entire lives?
Yeah, didn't they do enough work in the fucking factory?
But it's like, we found something for you to do. Just wave at people and maybe that'll help prevent some shoplifting.
I also love what a great little line that is of saying, I got enough credit. No, I don't need another one. He only has one credit card. The gag in so many things is I have 17 credit cards. I got to pay off this one and that one. It's like, no, Hank, one is too much for Hank as it is. He's that stable of a guy.
And 3 economic collapses ago, I think people in the 90s were really living off a lot of credit cards. I mean, I only have one credit card now.
Yeah.
And I do the quote unquote scam of paying it off every week to get those Amazon points.
That is, I do the same thing with it. Yeah. It's I do it for the points. Though they still got me, but I'm not for a while, I did have a good amount of credit sitting on it, and I thank all you wonderful patrons for making that not a case anymore.
I mean, I had to live off credit because I was unemployed so much, and I was like paying rent with credit cards, which sucked.
Boy.
And that debt is all wiped out. So thankfully, that's over with.
But I also love how Bobby forces himself into a B plot that shouldn't exist in this episode.
Yeah,
like, that's so great.
It's very subtle what's going on with Bobby, but I love the B plot here because Bobby is such a little kid, and when you're a little kid, you're a narcissist because you have no empathy. So you must be thinking, well, I'm the main character, and everyone's always thinking about me. So even though my birthday is 4 weeks away, yes, this has to be about me. This trip has to be about me. That's explained in the next scene where another great subtle joke with Buckley here in that Bobby walks up to Luann and Buckley, says hi to them. Luann says hi back. Buckley says nothing. Luann says he's on a break. So he won't greet anyone when he's on a break.
He's like, hey, you know what? Buckley is a jerk, but you need to make those kind of boundaries in your life. If it's break time at work, it's break time. They don't know you. You don't know them doing any work during that time. That includes saying hello. You know,
that's just one task he has to do. So he's not going to do it to Bobby on his break.
Yesterday day. And Bobby's dreams too of like, I'll be by the dirt bikes holding a Toblerone.
Yes,
that's his dream.
He's found the perfect pairing of gifts for him. But yeah, his idea, he's telling Luann, it's like, well, of course we're here. They're gonna see what kind of gift I want for my birthday. Why would you bring a child to a department store to buy a dryer when his birthday is 3.5 weeks away? It doesn't make any sense.
And he's building it up so great of just like to have an episode be the story of, from his point of view, they forgot my birthday. It's a they forgot my birthday kind of story, except he is a month ahead of time already thinking that they forgot his birthday. Like his mix of excitement and stupidity is so great.
This is no Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa.
Yeah.
I like how Luann, she eventually becomes like a sidekick in this plot, but at first she's like, no, I don't think so, Bobby.
No,
She's not even like being harsh about it. She's like, I don't really think so.
And she's not, she's smarter than she normally is written. Like, she's the smart one in this combo here. Only a couple times did she buy into like, maybe you're right, I guess. Yeah.
Well, she goes in for it by the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's true.
But Buckley does say hey to Bobby when his break is over, but Bobby's off screen.
He looks at his watch and then says it. That's and then I mean, what a great observation too here that like I have speaking of being on the other side of that cash register. The scam of and this was like new then, the scam of the department store you're at going like, and would you want to also get a credit card? Like, it stops everything. It creates a gigantic line because you have to take forever to fill shit out. Like,
that was also
awful.
A big movement in the late 90s, early aughts. And I don't do like this kind of retail shopping anymore. Maybe it still happens, but it's like, do you want the credit card? Do you want to subscribe to Entertainment Weekly? Do you want the GameStop card? Just this litany of questions you have to go through when all you want to do is leave and you don't want to be rude. And I had to be the one asking those questions. I worked at a game store and it was like, well, there's a magazine subscription, there's a discount club you could join, and as our boss said, your commission is you get to keep your job, which was very inspirational to all of us minimum wage clerks.
Yeah, no, at Blockbuster we had to do the same. Like, but don't you want this plan? And they know, like, they had the secret shopper stick too of just like saying, which I don't know if they ever had a secret shopper, but they would say, I know there's going to be a secret shopper soon. And if you end up getting them and you didn't offer them the new super plan or whatever, you're in trouble.
Yes. What is at stake besides your $5 an hour job?
Yeah, I know. But you think you've got you're young too. Another reason they get you young is so, you're like, well, I don't want to disappoint them. They're my like new teacher.
And you fear the district manager when he's just some guy with like a bachelor's degree in business.
I worked with a guy at that video store who like just would steal. He stole thousands of dollars and he actually got arrested at the store.
In merchandise or just like out of the register?
He got up to, I have access to the safe and can take money out of it amount, and he got arrested.
They count that money.
Yeah, I don't know what I never heard it. I just got to see him walk out in handcuffs, and that was insane. But yeah, I have been on the other side of the cash register of also at a video store when at Blockbuster a person comes in and says, they come up, they put down their DVDs and they say, well, I don't have a membership yet. I go like, well, stand over there and fill this out.
Yeah.
And it's going to take about 10 minutes, and then I have to input it all.
This involves paperwork. All my retail things are coming back to me now. I remember, this is the last thing. Sorry to bore everybody out there if I am doing that, but I remember when I was working in retail at like a game store, MSTs were a big thing. I think I've complained about this before. Multiple SKU transactions, and they were like another like category you had to hit when you're making a sale, where it's like, a manager tells you, I don't care what they're buying, you find a way to sell them something else too. If they're just buying a sucker, you find something else to sell them. It's like, what does it matter? If they're buying a $60 game, isn't that enough?
Is that enough for you? They have to also buy like a controller or something?
No, you find a strategy guide. You throw it down in front of them.
And if not that, say, aren't you excited for that game that just got announced? Give us $10.
You know, the sequel could be around the corner.
Yeah. Well, you'd want to get it, wouldn't you, man? And the way in the episode, to get back to the episode, the line of people behind Hank, like this, it is again, like you said, shows how customer service gets shittier because of this. Like what was more important than the dozen customers behind Hank is making sure Hank has a credit card with the company. Like that's what's most important.
Another subtle joke I noticed this time is that as this line stretches behind him, the sign above Hank says instant credit.
That's a good joke.
So,
I missed that.
Very subtle.
That's good.
There's one cut joke where Hank says, if you're going to make people wait this long, you ought to at least give them an eyeglass repair kit to play with.
That's cool.
So,
that's cute. I like that.
Hank could be like tightening his lenses or whatever while this is happening.
You know, it's important. You got to stay on top of that. But now glasses are so disposable. Well, not that disposable, but I got a new pair coming soon, actually. Get my yearly pair.
In 2022, Hank could be on Twitter while this is happening.
What? No, I don't think so.
Let's hear about Hank's credit woes.
Okay, Mr. Hill, your credit has been rejected?
Huh? But why?
Well, the computer doesn't say. I'm sorry. Next.
Hold on a minute. You made a mistake. I have perfect credit.
I think I recognize a frowny face when I see one.
Hank, why don't we just pay with a check?
Sorry, we can't take checks from people with bad credit.
I'm having the time of my life, and it's on sale.
Thanks for trying, Melinda, but I'm pretty sure you can't just look up my credit unless I send some kind of permission letter to my credit bureau.
Nah, it's a piece of cake. All you need is a $10 processing fee.
I'll just deduct that from your paycheck.
Mr. Strickland, I was just,
Hank's got bad credit.
Well, there's the right hair in your tuna. Seems like you're in the whole $40 to Arlen Video.
What? It says I owe $40, and that can't be true. I always bring back my tapes. Look for yourself. I've returned the Great Santini 23 times.
Okay. Hank Hill, June 23rd. Yeah, you rented and never returned cuffs and collars.
I've never even heard of that. Have you?
Unless it's got the name Merchant, Ivory, or Billy Crystal above the title, I am not interested.
So I do want to talk about a few of the cut jokes in the Strickland propane scene because there's a few funny buck jokes. So after Melinda tells Strickland Hank has
rarely
bad...
seen Melinda, yeah.
She'll pop up a few times, but not a big character. But when she tells Buck that Hank has bad credit, he goes, well, you can't have bad credit with what I pay you. And then he goes, well, you got a wife and kids, don't you? So he realizes he can't pay a man enough to feed his family.
That's a great line. And then also Hank is still, even though Hank is his best employee, he's like, oh, wait, you got a wife and a child, don't you? Like he doesn't even remember.
He's looking at Hank's credit report and he says, oh, that truck you bought it for a song. And Hank goes, that's the price of my house. That's what I bought my house for.
That's a great gag.
But what Buck sees as the price of a cheap truck, that was the cost of Hank's house.
That's so funny.
It shows their class difference too.
It's so good. I love it. And just also like Hank he has to pay the $10 to do it. I also love Hank's naivete of like, you couldn't just look at my credit score whenever you want. No one should be able to do that.
And that it's only, I mean, I don't need to tell you this, 25 years later, it's only gotten easier to find everything about everybody.
Yeah. You can know everything about everyone. And the only difference is now people tell you it more. I mean, well, like this is already the beast coming in here because it's like, why does this guy not give them a credit card? Well, a frowny face. The computer showed him a frowny face. He's like, the computer, it's a frowny face.
No one can actually help you. You can't actually blame anyone. It's always the computer won't let me do this or the computer says this. No one can actually make an executive decision. No employee can do that.
I know. Yeah. I mean, look, when you're on the other side of that cash register, I definitely liked going back on, sorry, the thing won't let me. You can see the bind I'm in. Like, I can't do it. Computer won't let me. Like, you can just, and sometimes that's a lie just to get out of it. But yeah.
Well, there's one more cut joke in the Strickland scene where when Strickland finds out Hank only owes $40, he thinks Hank is just that poor. He can't pay it. So he gives Hank the March of Dimes display.
Oh, that's so funny. He's going to steal from charity. He's like, here, you can take this. Like, he won't give him like a bonus or anything now.
No. Let's talk about The Great Santini.
Oh, sure.
Let's talk all about this movie because
a perfect Hank Hill movie, I'd say.
Hank rented it like 28 times or something.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I had to look up information about this movie. So it's a 1979 movie. It stars Robert Duvall. It's about a stern and abusive Marine father with a sensitive son, which is probably why Hank would enjoy it. Also, spoilers for this movie. In the end, the father dies during one last aerial mission for the Marines, and his son takes over as the head of the household, which fulfills his dead father's wishes.
Wow, man.
It's about a father who's heroically dies, and his son grows up because of that.
And finally, he taught his kid a lesson by dying, this jerk. No, I mean, Robert Duvall, he looks like a perfect military gruff dad. And I mean, this is like having just watched a bunch of Yellowstone with my stepdad, and he's a big fan of it. It was a nice time to watch. Like, I now have been thinking about like, oh, this is the dad content, things like The Great Santini, Band of Brothers, Yellowstone, like all this stuff made for dad.
For my stepdad, it was The Postman, that movie.
See,
he's a big fan of that.
But yeah, it sounds like your stepdad was more into like genre fiction.
He's more of a nerd. That's true.
See, tougher dads. Well, my stepdad has a military background as well, so I think. But again, nice guy. I love my stepdad. Listeners heard me cry about my stepdad.
That's
on this
true.
Podcast.
Go back to the Christmas episode.
Yeah, the Christmas episode.
So one thing about this movie is that I didn't know. So thank you to just brief research on Wikipedia. One scene from this movie is parodied a bunch. So in the movie, the dad is playing a one-on-one basketball game with the sensitive son, and he starts bouncing the ball off his head and saying, "Are you going to cry? Are you going to cry?" And that's a scene in the movie that's been parodied in things like The Simpsons, Roseanne, and the second Austin Powers movie. And also, Robert Duvall came back to do a parody of that scene in the 2005 movie Kicking and Screaming.
Holy crap.
He revisited that scene like 20 plus years later with, I'm guessing, Will Ferrell.
Wow, I had no clue they did so. That's so funny. I just thought it was, a regular old tropey thing that anybody did. I didn't think it was specifically from that movie. I mean, hey, I think I don't want to watch this movie though. As the sensitive son, I don't want to project
the mean dad wins in his rights.
Yeah, you know what? That's sure some other people will like that, but yeah. Well, and that Great Santini though, it's also funny to me because obviously he could have bought that VHS. The price of the VHS was 5 rentals at most, especially for an old movie like that. By 98 at Megalomart, he could buy a videotape of The Great Santini for $10.
I think Hank might think it's a little like too fruity to own a movie.
Yeah, that's true. Movie ownership, that's for pansies. Well, you like a movie so much you got to own it. It sounds pretty artsy fartsy to me.
Back to the episode though. Peggy's tastes are Merchant Ivory films and Billy Crystal movies.
What a great definition.
It really runs the gamut for her.
All right, so look, now Hank's Tales of the Tapes, renting them.
Okay.
That is. I worked at a Blockbuster and I worked at a mom and pop video store, not unlike Arlen Video. And so I have been the guy at the register in this thing. Though, in the cases at Blockbuster, when people say, I don't remember that or whatever, I didn't do that, which my instant reaction was, you are a liar. You are lying and you don't want to pay this. But half the time I think I would just side with them of like, well, yeah, but fuck the Blockbuster. What do I care if they get your $20? And so sometimes if they complain enough, if a Hank person complained enough at our store, if the manager was there, or somebody above me, certainly they would say, well, I want to speak to the manager. I don't know $50 on this movie. Then you send it to the manager, and usually the manager's tactics, and this would be the one I would take if a manager wasn't there, was to say, well, okay, how about we just put this in half and you just pay $20 and we move on and we unlock your account and you can rent that movie. And they go like, well, fine.
The manager gets paid slightly more to eat shit.
Yes,
that's his job.
their job. Yeah. So that would usually be how it is. Like, that is a difference in this episode. No, I cannot remember at either video store a point where you stood firm on somebody saying, but I did return it. Now at the mom and pop store, it was run by an extremely cheap small business despot who was a nice enough guy also as a person, but he was really a small business despot, and he would never forgive something like this. If he was there, he would be like, all right, let's talk this out, buddy. But if he wasn't there, then I would just go like, I was older then, I'd say like, whatever, just give me $5 and I'll just delete it. You also did have more control over the computer at this place than at Blockbuster. Like at Blockbuster, you really could just say, this says you owe $40 from a store like 50 miles away. I can't do shit.
And there's
about
like
this.
the god of corporate, like, oh, these are rules set down by corporate.
Yeah.
Corporate won't let me.
And unfortunately, a problem for this episode where it meets reality that they have to kind of change up is that by 98, Blockbuster had taken over most mom and pop stores, and certainly in like a suburban area like Arlen, and Blockbuster is based in Texas, but Blockbuster does not rent pornography, so it can't be a plot about pornography if he has an out-of-date a rental of a porno tape.
And we were questioning if there was a Blockbuster in Arlen, and in the Peggy the Bogglechamp episode, season 1, Luann rents a movie from Blockbuster, and she says they edited out the spicy scenes or whatever.
Right. So yeah, they have a Blockbuster, but the only way they could rent porno was for this, and I did rent pornography at that mom and pop shop, but it was...
You rented it to people.
Yes. Hey, I borrowed some and brought it back the next morning. No. Okay, but I actually wouldn't, because that, one, I know what the internet is, and two, that small business despot, he bought the cheapest shit he could. Like, he was like, oh, is this a $4? He would go to like a cheap adult store, and it's like, oh, these are $4 DVDs. I'll buy 100 of them and just shove them on the wall, and they would be the most inartful of DVDs. There would be no stars, no production values, often foreign productions that I would think probably didn't pay anybody who starred in it, and they would just be very direct in their titles.
Okay.
They wouldn't be something clever like Cuffs and Collars. It would just be like Anal Play 4 or something like that.
That's another thing. Well, we're talking about the world of pornography. This is all very cute to me now because, older boys have told me this. I don't know anything about it, but now pornography, it's like the title is nothing clever. It's just like, here is what you will see. Literally, here are the acts you will see. Here is maybe the race of the people in the video you'll see.
Are they a stepmom or aren't they?
Yes, exactly.
No, well, and hey, I blame SEO for that.
Oh,
That's
absolutely. You can't write a good headline anymore. You can't write a good porno title anymore.
It removes so much creativity from all walks of life. Yeah, but yes, I did rent porno to people, usually older people. The funniest. It was usually guys who were like, oh, you're too old to know how to use the internet. So here, and now I get to know your particular sex tastes, including occasionally, it was about a 9-to-1 split of gay to straight DVDs. Is 9 straight DVDs for every one gay one. And the ones that stick out to me are like, oh, I didn't think that you were a person who would rent gay porno, and just that kind of moment. But most embarrassing was when a woman my age came there, and she was like, well, yeah, I want a porno DVD. This I have plans tonight with a friend. And she came in like, oh, this is like the cheapest shit possible. I was like, yeah, I know. Like, you just buy porn somewhere else. Like, this is crappy porn. You're not going to get anything good here.
I have a lot of experience just renting videos in general because I grew up in the 90s. We didn't go to Blockbuster. We had Principles, Henry. It was too expensive.
There was nowhere else.
For me, there were two like local video stores on the same street, like 5 minutes from my house. So I was spoiled, and they were so local. They had like a guy's name in the title. Well, at least one of them did. One of them was called Anthony Coca's Videoland. This guy also owned like pizza chains too. So just some guy, and also Front Row Video or First Row Video. I forget what it was, but yeah, like it was cheaper than Blockbuster, and we didn't like Blockbuster, so I never actually rented at a Blockbuster.
No, I mean, I got to learn how evil Blockbuster was live. Like, as a little kid, loved Blockbuster, and then a new video store opened up across the street from the Blockbuster that undercut it. And then Blockbuster across the street took down its prices and then bought the other store across the street, and it taught me a harsh lesson about monopolies.
Well, they didn't want to buy Netflix, and look at them now.
Yeah, they got fucked, man. And then
they fucked themselves.
Yeah. Which I mean, it was just a bigger fish eating another fish. But on Netflix, that Blockbuster documentary. If you have nostalgia for Blockbuster, it will supply that, but it is far too nice to Blockbuster. And they bring in Lloyd Kaufman, Lloyd Kaufman from Troma. He is a bit wacky, but every point he says about Blockbuster being shit is correct, and how it hurt movies in the 80s and 90s. And they treat him like a crank when he's saying that, which I did not.
They play like circus musical while he's talking.
They kind of do. Yes. Yeah. But
so no Blockbuster for me, but I'm pretty sure in my Ohio town, there's still like a family video. All that exists now are family videos.
Wow. And there's, I think now if any video store exists, it is only through the kindness of like strangers who are just like, here's $50,000 on GoFundMe. Just keep going. You should exist. No one will come there.
It's for like money laundering.
Oh, sure.
It's like the car wash in Breaking Bad.
Yeah. And then eventually you'll read a headline of like, oh, this 80-year-old man who had been running it died. And of course it's not, no one's going to inherit it and keep it going. It's just gone.
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about video stores is the porn sections. The one at the first video store was in a separate room, so I never saw one went in there. The other one was in the section that used to be the kids section. So it had it was like this little walled-in section, but the walls were about 3 feet high, and it was right by the front of the store too. So it was very, very conspicuous.
Man, see, now I lived in suburban Florida where you couldn't I think it was. You actually had to go across the county line to like, oh, I know I crossed the county line because there's the adult store that's right on the corner. So I didn't have any video stores around a porno. When I moved here and worked at one, it was a shock to me. But again, back to the cheapness of the guy running the place. He didn't have a beaded curtain. He didn't have saloon doors. It was a corner, the farthest corner from the front of the office or from the entrance. There were walls up around it, and it just had one opening, and it was like, okay, enough shelves to hold 100-ish DVDs. And then he put like a curved mirror on top. So if you were working the front, you're like, okay, hey, did a child walk into the porn section? Okay, they did not. Good.
The porn corner. Yeah, I think the repurposed children's section was set up with like swinging saloon doors, so there was some like doorway into it, but they were just like not taking up the entire doorway.
Well, that was also a structural problem with the place too. So technically we had a bathroom for employees, but only employees. But occasionally you would have somebody go like, please, I got to. It's like, to do this, I have to escort you to the bathroom because it's in the office, and you will walk by the porno section to go there. And once or twice it was a parent with their kid who was like, my kid's got to go. And I was like, all right, there's only one bathroom. Deal with how I kind of just looked at the porno section like, you see what's there? You better shield your kid's eyes or something.
There's no time to turn all these tapes over.
Yes. Well, no, it was so also. It was the covers on the shelves. We had the actual DVDs by the counters. And again, so cheap that these covers did not demur from nudity on the front. It was like the money shot was on the front cover.
Ooh.
That's
you want to save that for the back.
I know. Again, like as I said, in artful, cheap porno DVDs.
One last thing about porn. We'll talk more about porn later, folks. Don't worry. But I just remember as a kid understanding like, oh, these are naughty videos, and you know, there's naked ladies in them. One thing I remember is like, oh, the things you bring up to the counter are huge. They're like the size of PC game boxes,
right? Yes.
Because I think when they're being sold, in those like very seedy warehouse stores, they don't want people shoplifting porno.
Oh, that's why they were so big.
Yeah, that's why the boxes were huge. But to bring the giant box up to the counter to get your tape, you can't shoplift that just the cover of the box, but it's there because it was really sold at like a store.
And I didn't see it, but a coworker at the mom and pop store told me like there was a dude who came in a couple times would look like he was looking at the porno films but not rent anything, but secretly have brought with him a razor blade to cut out the pictures and take them with him.
Pictures, Jesus.
Not stealing the actual DVDs, but to steal the dirty pictures on the covers.
I dated a woman who worked at Suncoast like 20 years ago, and those damn bladers, they come in with the razor blades, they steal all the DVDs.
See, that's this guy could only steal the nude pictures on the DVD boxes.
That was the only benefit of snapper cases. They help Warner Brothers prevent theft.
That's true.
And that's it.
Yeah, they look shitty on your shelf. But also that Kung Fu poster, that's just the Beverly Hills Ninja poster.
That's true. Bobby would be a big fan of that movie, I think.
I had pulled it up recently because there's a scene where Chris Rock says, everybody's trying to kick my ass. And he actually flinches at Chris Farley trying to hit him, which, it's funny. I guess listeners, we did this after. Yeah, I know, guys. We did this after he got hit on stage by Will Smith.
We talked about it on Talk to the Audience, but we recorded Traffic Jam weeks before the Oscars.
Yes, yeah. Hey, it happens sometimes. What? If something crazy happens with pornography after we record this, I'm sorry. We're out
by
of it.
now, Will Smith will have been brought to justice. He's making license plates now.
Oh, God. He'll be banned from everywhere. Yes. Anyway.
We're back in the video store, folks. And Bobby is questioning Luann to see if they're really here to buy a movie for his birthday. But once again, Luann's like, no, they didn't tell me anything about that. So this is when Hank asked Bobby, have you ever heard about cuffs and collars? And this was what puts in Bobby's mind that they're here to buy a movie for him. And he basically gives the description of every cop movie ever made.
So great.
Where Bobby says, oh yeah, two cops who don't get along, but then they do, but then it's too late because he's dead, but not really. And
so you've seen it.
No.
That's so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that answer is that Bobby wants it, whatever it is.
And he thinks that's why later he is like, oh, these are all cop movies when he sees them. He thinks this is just the police films.
I think Bobby would be more into Police Academy movies, though.
I did like the speaking of those deleted scenes, the one of Peggy with her old paper card, as somebody who had to create laminated Blockbuster cards in the machine. That was always my least favorite part of it. Like, all right, beep, boop, beep. It printed it out wrong. Time to do it again. And you just feel this anxious pressure of like the line is building behind them and they're all going to be mad at me when I have to help them after.
Hey, I remember the changeover from paper cards to plastic cards and video rentals. It was a big deal.
They were more durable. Now I think I threw out my Blockbuster card finally a long time ago.
I would hope so. So Luann says she's never heard of it either. And when Hank and Peggy turn back around, Bobby congratulates her for trying to cover it up. She's like, you are so smooth, Luann.
He's building up himself to be disappointed. When I watched it with my husband, he'd not seen the episode before. He's like, oh man, how disappointed is Bobby going to be at the end of this episode? And I told him, like, no, don't worry. He'll
be the happiest little boy ever. A very lucky boy.
Yes.
Back to the clerk. I love this line from Hank where he's like, well, I didn't rent it, so I want the $40 removed, and you can penalize yourself whatever you think is fair.
That's so good. It's him for saying, like, yeah, this can be the deal. Like, I won't be too mad at you. But yeah, these I love the voice on that cashier too. He's like, a cuff and collars. Like, he's got a little lisp to him, but he's just doing his job. And just like me at Blockbuster, he's like, hey man, it's the computer. I can't do nothing, buddy.
And the entire point of this episode is like Hank just paid the $40, but it's the principle of the thing.
The principle,
and he won't budge. And Hank thinks he's being tough but fair, but the computer won't let the clerk erase anything until Hank can return the tape or pay the $40. So again, it's the Mike Judge nightmare. It's just like the computer won't let me. Me as a clerk can offer you no customer service. It is sort of just the like, hey buddy, I just work here kind of deal.
You can't talk to anyone. There's no conversation to be had. It's just pulled away. And also think of what an inverse this is of today. Like, this is a joke about late fees and how horrible it is. You pick one movie, and if you keep it out too long, you get charged a late fee, as opposed to you have access, you pay a monthly fee to one thing, and you have access to hundreds of movies you never watch, and nothing's ever late. You just don't watch it. Very, very different.
And I went through a similar Hank dilemma with the computer won't let me very recently because to make a long story short, I have this thing called a Nexus card. It makes it easier to cross the border. I do it a lot because I go to Canada a lot. And when I got my Nexus card, they left the junior off of my name. I'm a junior, by the way. I don't like it. And even though all the information is where it should be, it's like, well, that's my date of birth. That's a picture of me. I had to give an interview to get this card. It's all legit. It wouldn't work because the junior wasn't on it. So after COVID lightened up and I was able to actually, get an appointment and, go in and say, I need this fixed. The lady was very mad at me and she was like, well, what are you talking about? I was like, well, there's a junior that should be on this card and it's not on this card and I need it there for me to use it. And she's like, we put whatever's on your passport on the card. And I said, the junior is on my passport. It's not on the card. And she says, we don't make mistakes.
Ooh.
And I said, well, you did. Here's my card. And I was like, she was trying to get me to go somewhere else. And I was like, I don't want this to be a Kafka thing. Please don't turn this into a Kafka thing. So she eventually relented and made the correction, but she was so mad about it because it should be someone else's thing to do, but she had to do it. There was nowhere else to turn. There was no manager I could talk to. I had to make her do this, and she was so mad at me.
That is, see, that's what's not covered by the Beast here of just like, but nobody wants to do anything.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It sucks to do your job, and
maybe
wants
she'd
to.
get in trouble for it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why she was mad. Like, I can't believe you're making me do this.
I'm gonna have to explain this to it's just logical. Yes, This is why stuff like King of the Hill works too. Like, well, we all kind of have been felt this way at one time or another in the harsh world and impersonal world that is today as society.
Yeah. No one can help anyone, and we're all we can only be punished. So we're always afraid to do anything.
And you must either become Hank Hill or the Joker. Yeah. The only two choices.
I was very nice to the woman, and I think that made her even more angry.
That's good. I mean, also too that she probably is used to just saying, well, I can't. And the person just goes like, okay. And they just walk away. Like if you have answers or know the system as much as them or close to as much as them, then you're really forcing their hand there.
My theory is her strategy was to try to escalate any argument to the point where they can say, well, I'm going to call security or I'm not going to help you with that tone, sir. But I was like, oh, could you please help me?
I would bet she has had, the woman in your story, I do feel a little bad for her because probably also in customer service of the last 2 years, especially, you've seen the worst of humanity by times 10. Like, I couldn't imagine that video store job in please wear your mask, sir times. I couldn't imagine doing that job.
In a way, I was not mad at her because I understand, and I hate walking into any customer service situation like this, but you walk into it knowing they can never give me the benefit of the doubt, ever.
Yeah.
Because they're always on guard, and I have to break through that guard because they are trained to never give anyone the benefit of the doubt.
Well, because if they trust somebody who then is proven to be a liar, then they'll get in trouble later.
Yeah.
Their boss will tell them, why didn't you ask him about this? Why didn't you ask him about this?
It's a very American thing where we all have to suffer because a few people broke the rules, or a few people could break the rules. A very, very small amount of people that are insignificant.
Teachers punishing the whole class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, a lot of personal gripes on this episode. Let's talk about, let's learn the truth about cuffs and collars in our next clip.
I told you I didn't rent the tape. Now, who's calling me a liar, you or the machine? Because I want to know whose ass to kick.
I'm not calling you a liar, sir.
Fine. Now, where's the ass on this thing?
I need a dryer, Hank. Just pay for the tape.
Absolutely not. I won't pay for someone else's screw-up. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if that tape was sitting on the shelf right now. Where would Cuffs and Collars be? Action-adventure? Action-comedy? Action.
Make a left.
Okay.
Normally, I think porno music is very hacky, but this is kind of the last time you could do it.
Yes,
Though I would get mad when they would still do this about 10 years later because I don't know a lot about porn, folks, but it doesn't sound like this anymore.
No.
If you turn on porn and there's music, you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
What century is this?
Who pays for music? That must have gone out with the steel drums of Girls Gone Wild. That was the last music they put on a porno.
It became so hack that it was like a frigging commercial slogan, like bow chicka wow wow.
Yeah, that's right.
I wanted to vomit when I heard that.
Again, you know what? That Clerks movie, they were getting it right in that titles like Cuffs and Collars, there were still some of them, But in the second half of the joke of Randall ordering porno tapes,
yeah,
all the names he says in that was the names of the ones that my boss bought. Like usually just an action and a participant named in it.
I mean, I don't want to reveal this much about this element of my life, but like when at this point in time, yes, I was very interested in porno. I was 15 years old. I was about to be 15 years old. And I remember the first pornography I had access to was, I think I was maybe 13 or 14. There was a new kid in school, and to win everyone over, he brought pornography because...
That makes friends fast.
Yes.
I bet. Yeah.
He came from California, the mystical land,
Wow.
and his friend would go like dumpster diving for porn.
That's
and
smart.
The first porn he gave me, very few pictures. It wasn't a Penthouse forum. It was like mostly text. So it was like a text magazine with like lots of filthy stories.
Wow.
And that was the first porn I had access to. And then later in early high school, there was lots of talk about, the Pamela Anderson tape, the Tommy Lee tape. I never saw that. And I was like, well, how do you get this? How do you see this? Because you had to go to like a store to access pornography. I mean, there was internet porn, but you had to have the internet, the fast connection. There weren't a lot of videos. But the first time I actually saw hardcore pornography was when I was 14. And my friend lent me a copy of a Jenna Jameson video.
Oh my!
That he got from his downstairs neighbors, and that's the first time I saw full penetration when I was a young lad of 14. But now, any kid with an iPad, it's just like whatever act you want to see, whatever celebrity or porn star you want to see, they're just there waiting for you.
And you don't even need to be looking for it. It will just be in your search results. Yeah, if you say for podcast research, look up a famous person's name, you might just see them naked in the image results. No, I mean, I also experienced straight pornography in that way through pals in, closeted childhood. Like I definitely saw the Pam and Tommy tape, and man, which is in the news these days. And man, Tommy, his dick is huge. It's crazy.
Now there's a Hulu show about his dick, and it talks to him.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard.
Jason Mantzoukas, I've heard.
It should be John Benjamin.
but anyway, yeah, that was how I saw hardcore pornography as well. But it was from a friend who stole it from his dad, who was a Bill type who owned a whole lot of pornography, and he wouldn't miss it. The 10 magazines and 3 tapes that my friend had, his dad never missed. Like, he had that much pornography. So
I remember before that, maybe when I was like 10 or 11, it wasn't hardcore pornography, but there was like some Playboys floating around. There was some Woods porn that was Playboys and Penthouses. But when I was a kid, what disappointed me was there's actually not too many naked ladies in Playboy. It's like there's a centerfold, maybe a few other things, but 95% of the magazine is articles and cartoons and stuff.
And as I recall, a lot of perfume or cologne ads.
Yeah.
The smell of a Playboy is a bunch of colognes mixing together in my memory.
A lot of inserts, but like the Playboys I saw were all from like there were friends' dads' Playboys from the 70s, so it gave me a misconception about what women look like naked from that point on.
It's still my imagination now. They all look like Pamela Anderson, right?
Not in the 70s.
No. But anyway, yeah, I guess it's a funny time to remember. Our childhood was like the start of internet pornography, and like one of my friends, I downloaded some images, but starting out for me, it was more written based, which you could download and view much faster. But
we're revealing all this stuff about ourselves because talking about 1998, you can't get porn into your house. Porn cannot infiltrate your house. You have to go to a place and get it if you're Hank Hill. And that's why this is such a violation of everything he believes in, because he wants to keep this away from him and his family, but it's coming to him, and that shouldn't happen.
He entering the beaded rooms, he is so innocent. He doesn't even realize this is the adults only room, which is so great. And I mean, the reaction of Redcorn and Nancy, judging him for that is so funny.
They're in the romance section renting movies.
Oh, that's so good.
There's another great joke with them in this episode too that I really like. Lots of fun personal stories here in this episode. Act 2 starts. Hank is horrified. He wants to know how could they ever think I'd run a stag film, Peggy? I'm married.
That's so funny.
Hank thinks porno is still called stag films and that you only see them at your bachelor party. Oh, here's a nudist camp movie.
What married man would look at pornography? I'm married. Yeah, that's such a funny idea. And yeah, I didn't know stag film, that term. There's a joke about it, and I was rewatching old Bugs Bunnies, and the one of him trying to get the Oscar from 43 or whatever. He says, "Hey, play my movie," and the thing starts playing, and it's just a drawing of a buck, and it says stag reel. And you're like, no.
I needed to wait till I was older to figure that out.
Yes.
That was when porno was illegal, and you oh, I got this reel. You won't believe what happens on it, and you show it down at the Elk Lodge or whatever.
Yes, yeah, keep the ladies away. Which that's also all these World War II vets watching pornography with their friends. That feels strange to me. I don't know.
And by the way, a stag is a male deer, which is why in that stag film joke, there's a deer pulling down its pants or something, or there's a sexy deer in that Bugs Bunny joke.
That's correct. Yes.
So Hank is beginning his investigation. I like how this is a procedural too, because Hank is oh, June 23rd, that was the day I rented the video supposedly, but wasn't I installing grab bars in my dad's shower? And Peggy was no, I went to play Boggle with Nancy and I left you at home alone.
Yeah. Peggy is obsessed with also that she treats it as this huge crime of if Hank Hill ever masturbated it would be the end of their marriage.
Well, by the end of the episode, it's never resolved, but Peggy definitely believes Hank was actively masturbating in their house.
Yeah, she does.
To pornography.
Which also there's no that's not a problem, but I guess if part of their relationship is that she doesn't want him jerking off, then I suppose she finds that as a betrayal. But
she just wants him to pay the $40, and in her mind she's you're probably embarrassed because you did do this and you don't want to admit it. And she goes, it doesn't matter if you did or you didn't. He's just I need you to believe that I didn't.
It does matter.
Yeah.
And she's okay, I believe you, but just one question. Did you rent that tape?
No. Yeah.
Well, okay, but whether you did or you didn't, just pay the $40.
I like the circular argument where he just keeps saying no, and she goes, well, it doesn't matter if you did. I didn't.
Well, even if you did, it's but I didn't. Yeah, and so great that then it builds into Bobby takes their secretiveness to be ooh, it's a present. Oh boy.
Yeah. Because Peggy goes, I don't want people to be talking about this, especially in front of Bobby. And he thinks they're talking about his birthday present. So it's a great mislead for him.
And it's great how he pops into the room. I just love the little detail that Luann is braiding her own hair as she does that.
And then later in the episode, her hair is braided.
That's good.
It's not even for a joke. It's just Luann is bored and she's braiding her hair.
She doesn't have a ton to do in this episode.
No.
Just react to Bobby. Yeah.
But the boys weigh in on Hank's porno problem.
So, Nancy tells me she ran into John Redcorn at the video store. The two of them heard you complain about some porno tape you lost.
Yeah, man, talking about that dang old cuffs and collars, man. When they come over to clean that pool, man, start going, quit it. I didn't rent that movie.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who is disgusted by pornography. It's offensive. It's demeaning. It creates a standard of idealized beauty that your average man can't compete with.
Don't worry, Bill. I'm not going to let my credit and good name be done in by a damn computer error.
Computers don't make errors. What they do on purpose. By now, your name and particulars have been fed into every laptop, desktop, mainframe, and supermarket scanner that collectively make up the global information conspiracy, otherwise known as the Beast.
Dale, I'm having a problem with one videotape. Not some kind of high-tech boogeyman.
You just be careful. Computers have already beaten the communists at chess. Next thing you know, they'll be beating humans.
Oh, so good, man. This is it's not his story, but this is a great Dale episode. This is really good.
Yeah, they're finding more to do with these guys outside of having them just comment on the story. We're going to get a Bill episode pretty soon.
I like that Boomhauer, he admits to oh yeah, I know what Cuffs and Collars is because he watched it, because he is an unashamed single man who probably brings it. I would think he has watched pornography with his random partners he's had in his life. But meanwhile, Bill doth protest too much, which I did. I think on my first viewing, I did not even see it coming, even though it is so obvious that a lonely, sad man like Bill is actually secretly an expert in pornography and owns all of it.
He's a porn freak.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was protesting too much before. I think he was talking about like pudding wrestling.
That's
and like
right,
how
yeah.
it's disrespectful to women and pudding.
And pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet too, part of Bill, when he gets mad at all the stuff coming in the mail, the Bill's like, I have a private P.O. box to receive my pornography. You can't take that similar care, Hank. Come on.
This is real Bush League crap.
Yeah.
Although I do agree with Dale. Again, we're all trapped in the beast. And it's like when you see an ad on your phone or on Twitter or whatever, you're like, oh, I was just talking about that. Is my phone spying on me? And I think the scarier thing is like, no, based on information people have about you, they know what you're going to be thinking about. And they can shove something in your face like, I was just thinking about a Subway sandwich. Now I want to eat one.
Yeah, it can remember like the inserted Amazon ads are like, well, we know you just went to Amazon to buy more fiber bars. Don't you want even a different fiber bar? What about this one? Yeah, it's creepy.
I mean, the beast is how, like you said, we have nothing to sell in America except for information on people, and that's it.
And I'm sure there's no like horrible end point to that could happen. But I also love Hardwick. The way Hardwick delivers is kind of Tommy Jones type monologue, so good. Outhouse, but for desktop mainframe is so good. The beast.
And Dale is correct.
Yeah, he actually is right. That's what drives Hank crazy. It's like, oh wait, Dale was right.
It's a horrifying situation in which Dale is correct.
Also, that he does not view communists as human. That's also very Dale.
That's a good Dale line. We're back at Strickland Propane. Hank answers the phone. It's a guy named Matt. We know he's a telemarketer, but Hank is like, oh shit, I forgot who this guy was. He's a customer. He's like flipping through his Rolodex like, oh, hi, Matt.
He's too friendly. He can't. He gets completely disarmed by this guy. I just love, man, the acting on Herman on this guy going,
he's great.
It's me, Matt. Peggy, like his just, and also that he editorializes too. And by Rugburn 2, I mean Rugburn also. Rugburn 2 isn't very good.
Yes,
it's so good.
It's a great reading by him. He's trying to offer Hank more porno because he's from a company called Consenting Adults.
That's a good name.
It's more of it like kind of the Office Space style humor because you see where this guy is working. His job sucks. He's just surrounded by cubicles with people doing the same thing.
Oh God, yes, yeah, you're right. Very Office Space. They all have to dress that certain way and just this like endless depressing bill and to then think that that's a better situation for workers 25 years ago than it is now.
It's true. Nobody's hiring Americans to do this work anymore.
Yeah. No one's paying a livable American wage for this. Like they found it's cheaper and can export that misery to people who aren't in America.
Hank, I think, thinks this kind of conversation is illegal because he goes, this is an interstate phone line.
That's so funny.
Like this chatter going across state lines is illegal.
And yeah, cuffs and collars, Rugburn, jailbait. Well, jailbait is very direct, but the comedy writers love writing porno names. You know, it's an attempt to be both bawdy, as our pals on Podcast Ride would say, and clever, you know,
and to push the envelope on what you can do on Fox at 8:30 on Sunday, and they go pretty far.
Oh man, there's a couple, but I mean, Rugburn already is like, okay, I think we all get what that means.
Don't watch Rugburn 2. Hank is like, how did you get this number? And he's like, well, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you we have a wider selection and lower prices than Arlen Video. And that's when Hank goes, Arlen Video told you I rented pornography? And that's when everybody appears in the doorway, and Hank is just like, who plays the most hits? Y104. And he's trying to play it off like the radio station pranked him. He's like, that crazy morning zoo.
It's a smart turn by Hank there. He's like, okay, just pretend it was a prank. But yeah, poor Hank, he must be humiliated and degraded by life. And and the way it's too ambitious for TV. I think they do a fine job with it, but having a full turnaround on the telemarketer, like, it's like 5 frames of it, and it still works, but
they needed more frames, and that's expensive. But they do a full turnaround, and then we go past his head to see the computer. He's saving Hank's info, and then we see the process of what happens next. He's feeding the beast.
To think you'd even have to press save on the beast now, it's like, no, you can't. It saved it the second you typed a letter.
You can't tell it not to save.
Yeah.
So we cut to a location printing out hundreds of address labels for Hank. We see that his zip code is the same as Austin's zip code.
Oh, Oh, well, that really drives home where this is.
He doesn't live anywhere near Austin.
No. He would want to keep it. He would want to do the opposite of keep Austin weird.
He's keeping his distance from Austin.
And hey, if that's where fucking Tesla and Joe Rogan are, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, although I feel bad for the people in Austin.
Hey, yeah, they got to be too cool. That's their problem. It's the danger. Hey, SF sucks way worse. It got turned even worse.
That's true.
You know? Yeah.
But we're moving on to the cargo. It's being offloaded onto a mail truck, and then we cut to the Hills mailbox, stuff with letters. There's so many things. There's just like packages piled below it. And there's a cut joke that I'm glad they cut. It's like kind of gross where after all of this machinery is in place, the final part of the process is some shirtless guy in a dark room pops a CD-ROM in and he like selects Hank's address and then digs something out of his belly button.
Ugh, yeah.
So it just shows you how both high tech and low tech this effort is to market to Hank.
It's a clever idea, but yeah, too gross. Kind of derails this sex thing. The comedy of the sex thing to make you have to look at some gross shirtless guy picking at his belly button. You know.
Before we get to the scene where Hank is in front of the mailbox, there's a big cut scene, and Billy West is in this episode. I don't like when Billy West is in King of the Hill because his voice is too cartoony for this kind of low key show. But at one point in the episode, Hank was going to see a lawyer, and this is all preserved on the DVD in animatic form. And we cut to the office. It's about a 1 minute or 90-second scene where Hank complains to this lawyer. He's getting harassing phone calls at work. He thinks it's spreading, and Peggy's like, yeah, I tried to use the ATM today, and it gave me instructions in Espanolish. So
that's
making
almost too stupid for her to say Espanolish.
There's a very good line from the lawyer where he replies, I don't think I can help you. I know I might be able to help you. So that's a good line from him.
I love how Hank, I remember this now where Hank says, I came here because your Yellow Pages ad had a woman saying we can help you, but now I see that like we can't help you, and the woman is you.
Yeah, that's when the scene escalates. He does explain to Hank, okay, I can get this under control, Hank, but first you need to control your spending habits. A man with your salary and a narrow urethra should not be renting more than one explicit sex tape a month.
Oh, is that why Hank doesn't masturbate as much either, because of his narrow urethra?
It could be.
It's less enjoyable for him.
This lawyer is making a medical evaluation, but Peggy wants to know, like, well, how do you know all this stuff? And he's informing Hank more about the beast. Like, anytime you make any transaction, even order a pizza, it's logged somewhere. And Peggy's like, oh, even a plain pizza? So she's like interested in knowing about this.
That's so funny. It's not creeping her out. She's like, wow, that's so fascinating. Yeah.
And this scene ends with the lawyer saying, well, Mr. Hill, you can't fight the computers. He's like, oh yeah? And he unplugs a plug from the wall, and it's not the computer plug. And Peggy just goes, oh, Hank. And she does it herself, unplugs the computer.
I can see why it was clearly cut for time, but it was a real funny scene.
Yeah.
Of him just, again, Hank's trying everything. I guess this would explain why he represents himself later instead of going, which seems Dale level crazy for him to do. But.
Well, you think that he hates lawyers because of the crack episode.
Right.
He just does not like to be put in that position, and I'm sure he hates anything involving lawyers.
That's true. That lawyer did tell him to plead guilty to a thing he didn't do. Yeah.
And again, he should pay the $40. That's what the lawyer's advice is. He's going to pay the lawyer a lot of money to be told to pay $40.
Yeah, I know that. It's such a beautiful story that it's all just $40. It's all he has to do is just pay the $40, but he can't do it. His pride. His pride.
So meanwhile, Bill is shocked by the amount of pornography piling up under Hank's mailbox.
Shame on you, Hank Hill. What you do in the privacy of your own home is disgusting enough, but to let it spill out into our streets where my future children will someday play, well, that is going too far. Shame. Shame.
I would like the luxury of vomiting on myself right now, but I don't have any clean clothes to change into. Would you just pay the bill so I can get a new dryer?
It's too late. The beast's already got him in its jaws. Your only way out is to start life over with a new identity. If you want, I can get you the birth certificate of a child who died in 1953. It's hardly been used.
No, I am not a quitter.
Who's not a quitter? My dead friend Hank Hill? Or my new friend, Rusty Shackelford?
Look, just help me get this smut back to the post office.
Bobby!
Do not get off the bus!
Look at all those cards and gifts. This is gonna be the best birthday ever.
So that clip has the debut of Rusty Shackelford,
Woo!
a running joke and Dale's alias.
We love Rusty Shackelford.
Yeah.
It's such a great name.
It's an amazing fake name.
You know, it's a great fake name, but if it wasn't Johnny Hardwick saying Rusty Shackelford, like, we probably wouldn't remember it half as much.
It's a great reading of that crazy name.
Rusty I mean, that probably sold the joke in the room of him saying, like, Rusty Shackelford.
I want to know the entire list of names that was read out in that room.
Oh, so good. And yeah, to find out that in season 11, they finally did an episode of, like, you know what? There's a real Rusty Shackelford.
That's right. He comes back to claim his identity.
I didn't realize it was so. I had to look that up on the wiki. I was like, oh wow, that was that late in the series.
There's one cut joke from the mailbox scene in which Hank is horrified that the mailman also saw this.
Oh, I wish they'd have kept that. He's like, who else saw this? Well, the mailman. God, like, yeah, it's like, of course, the mailman delivered it. He doesn't
want to be shamed in front of the mailman.
I also love Bill again. Bill protesting too much, but his saying, like, where my future children will someday play.
It's a great version of that, like, whatever you do in your house is fine. He's like, no, what you do in your house is disgusting.
Yeah, it's disgusting enough. Yeah, it's so good.
This is pre-Peggy crush Bill.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
He's not imagining his future life with Peggy yet.
Yeah, he can't say, what, you want to leave Peggy and leave her all alone? I can't let that happen, Hank.
So they go to the post office next. Dale and Boomhauer are there. He's trying to return everything, trying to get his equipment, as he calls it, magazines and equipment.
Yeah, so I do think, though, I get that some free things would be sent to you, like mainly, though, catalogs. Like, actually, at that video store, I'd say quarterly there was a porno ordering catalog that would get sent. I saw that a couple times, but actually sending, like, plugs or wands and whatnot, like, those things aren't cheap. You don't just say, I could see maybe one or two companies would say, if we send it to him and he doesn't pay us for it, that we can bill him later or something, maybe. But I would think you just get a catalog, not the actual item.
Yeah, I guess this was an era in which you were sent free samples in the mail.
That's true, yeah.
You could feel 3 kinds of softness.
But those massaging ones, those weren't cheap.
Yeah.
You know?
Or maybe they were and they just, like, scalded you or something.
Yeah, man. You know, maybe it was a very cheap version being sent to Hank, perhaps.
But the clerk can give Hank no real answers. He's like, you just need to you need to contact the company you buy your pornography from.
I think it's a great extra humiliation to Hank that when he gets to the front of the line with his arms full of pornography, it is an attractive young woman he has to say it to. Like, it's also extra humiliating.
And he gets outraged that she's accusing him of buying pornography. So the lady gives him a form saying, fill this out, we'll put your information in the computer. And then Dale's like, no forms, no computers, we were never here.
Don't feed the beast. I love that. Yeah. I mean, in his case, he's like, yeah, more forms aren't going to help you, Hank. It'll just make it worse. But Jester saying, like, well, we're the post office. We can't remove you from a mailing list. We just have the things and we give them to you. That's our job.
And the last shame is an old lady asks Hank if he wants to prolong his lovemaking pleasure for just pennies a night. She's reading from the box like, Mr. Hank Hill?
Man. And he warns us, but we didn't listen. He said it could be you or you next time. And yes, we all, of mail that I get that annoys me. It really just is. And it annoys me in just that it feels wasteful. This is not me bragging, but I did give to some charities, especially in the last few years.
College boy.
And like food banks or Trans Lifeline or Southern Poverty Law Center. And I swear they spend more money on sending me letters to ask for more money than they did. Like, they spent the entire amount of money I gave them on sending me more letters for it.
Yeah, we talked about phones earlier. When I get a text, it's either spam or Bernie Sanders texting me for donations. Not him literally, but like whatever place has my number that I gave to.
Don't get me started on that, man. I happily gave Bernie 2020 money, and then I know that's the only reason I'm getting texts of like, hey, I'm a shitty Democrat. Can you help us save the... I'm like, oh, God damn it, Bernie.
There's a new most important election every week.
Yes, yeah, it's which they are important. Yes. I know, but yeah.
But Hank takes a stand in our next clip.
Don't you people understand? If I don't fight, someday it could be your name on these plugs. I'm doing this for all of you.
Do you know this guy?
No dadgum way, man. It's just some dirty old man hanging around with sex toys. Man. Back at my place, if you're interested. Boomhauer? No. I can do without Bill by my side. He brings nothing to this fight. But you?
You should have seen this coming, Hank. One by one, your friends will desert you. I'll be next.
Now, Dale, this stuff about the beast, you made all that up, right? Of course you did.
Oh, no. Everything has been foretold in the book of Revelations. You just stepped in a diaper.
Damn it, it's the Vice Squad. They must have followed us. Quick, Dale, bury the... Dale?
Sir, this is a municipal dump. All garbage must... Wait a minute. This Super Glide is oil-based. That's a petroleum byproduct. You can't throw that out here. Same with the batteries in your vibrator.
This is not my... And it's not a... It's a wand massager. It says so right on the box.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Like I read that box like 1,000 tiny butterflies urging you to let go.
And I was kind of shocked in 1998 they could say vibrator.
Yeah, I am shocked.
On a show like this,
Man,
on a cartoon.
Definitely in Florida at the Spencer's Gifts, I remember my friend who worked there would joke of like, yes, we have several massaging wands we sell.
You know, the Hitachis?
Mm-hmm,
they're not used for backs.
Yeah, I'm sure it rubs it out great in your back, really rubs it out.
They'll just blast those muscles.
Yeah, but also that when they talked about the Chuck Mangione credit card, I also love the typeface on that.
Yeah.
Was so good. Yeah, 6 months with 0% interest feels so good.
He's such a shill, but he'll get exploded soon.
But yeah, everything was foretold in the Book of Revelations. He just stepped in a diaper.
And Dale does abandon him next, as he predicted.
Yeah, that's it's also funny. Hank says like, Bill brings nothing. It's like, no, Bill actually secretly is your best friend in this thing.
He has not gotten the tapes yet.
But yeah, again, the only thing that feels different from 90s America to 20s America is this cop wouldn't know the rules. He would just say, well, you can't do this. Like, go away. Like, they wouldn't cite rules or say, like, this actually feels more like a 90s libertarian thing of like, hey, you can't fish here. You don't have a fishing license, or it's illegal. This is a garbage dump, but technically this garbage can't be here. It has to be there. Like, which I'm not saying there are rules like that, but I don't feel like they're enforced. Like, I feel like I could pour oil straight into a sewer in front of a cop, and the cop would just be like, whatever.
I think in this case, for this scene, it's the cop is identifying items and making Hank even more embarrassed. He's not just saying, you can't bury that here. He's like, well, look at this lubricant. Look at this dildo you have.
That's true, yes. Bringing up the oil-based lubricant, which, water-based is a smarter tool.
That's true. What are you doing, people?
Yeah, come on.
Figure it out.
I guess, it's the cheap ones getting sent to Hank here. He's getting the cheap oil-based. Though, perhaps in 1998, the technology wasn't as good for water-based
Lube is so advanced these days. Ask your local lube salesman for more information. There's another mention of a computer because the cop asked for Hank's license. Like, I'm going to run you through the computer. And Hank is like, computer? Hank lies. He says he doesn't have his license. And I like how subtle this joke is because he's like, but I can tell you I was born in 1953. As a child, I was quite ill. He doesn't say my name is Rusty Shackelford, which would be a cheaper way to make that same joke, which is funny. But I like how it's dancing upon him admitting he's Rusty Shackelford.
Just in case he needs to use it. I mean, also, too, this shows you how far Hank has been pushed. He's running from the police and evading arrest. This is not what Hank would do normally.
I think this is like a pretty bold move for Hank at this point in the series.
And I guess, too, this is where I remember another deleted scene from it that showed the line of what's too dirty for Fox.
For sure. There's one more scene like that they will end up revising to be less dirty. But in the cut scene, the sex foam he sprays doesn't work. So he pulls out Benoit balls behind him and scatters them. And the mix of the balls and the foam causes the cop to slip. I didn't know what Benoit balls are. You put them in your vagina. That's what they are.
I know it as a word. Yes, yeah.
I didn't know it as a word. I'm like, I've never heard of this in my life.
Though, I mean, the foam's slippery enough to explain the cop slipping and falling.
But yeah, that felt like a line in the sand for Fox. Like, we're not. You can say massage or you can say vibrator. We're not having Benoit balls in the screen.
Benoit balls, too specific. Yes.
We're back in Luann's room. Her hair is fully braided, and she is doing like surprise party training with Bobby, where Bobby is like trying trying to figure out how to react. Like, how long have you been planning this? Oh my gosh.
So good. And that, you know what? That practice shows off in the later bits of him going like, eh! Like that sound he makes, that's I guess what him and Luann agreed upon was the best like I'm surprised noise.
That's a great noise by Pamela Adlon. I might play it again later. And yeah, that's what that little scene is about. And then we cut to Peggy. She's having a great time driving along to Juice Newton's Queen of Hearts. And look up the video. It's very fun.
It is fun. I did look up that. I never watched the video before. It's a lot of fun.
And
but
she's very cute.
I also love like Peggy. I mean, it is so perfect character thing of like Peggy is a woman who listens to a woman singing a country song and excitedly sings along, like, but says the words wrong. Like I also love that. Like
Peggy says, she isn't very smart, but it's actually knowing it ain't really smart.
I know she just like, but it's one of those things like, oh yeah, there's a bathroom on the right, not a bad mood on the rising. It's just you hear these in the pre-Google world. You don't have lyric sheets. You can't just. Google's killing lyric websites, by the way, now.
Yeah.
If you just search song lyrics, Google just puts them there. You don't even have to click on the website. It's killing them.
I don't like that.
I even noticed that with like, I wanted to look up old articles I did for a website you shouldn't go to, but on that website, I did do and got SEO rank on like best Spider-Man games. And when I Google that now, it just tells me what the 10 are at the top, like the 10 best Spider-Man games in this is like, they're not even clicking on my article.
It gives you a summary, like, don't go to that website, read the summary instead.
Yeah, here's the list now, or same with videos. It's like, oh, this video that said 10, here's each video, like pointed. It's Google, the beast has changed quite a lot in this time.
I would jam out to Queen of Hearts in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas because it was on the country station.
It's a classic. I'd say it's a classic. By old Juice Newton.
So she stops and pulls over when she sees Hank standing in the bed of his truck covered in dump stains and holding a sign that says Boycott Arlen Video. And I love this camera move, which is like sophisticated for the show because what we see of Hank when it's established is we see him through the window of the truck. Or sorry, we see him through the window of the car. The car stops. Peggy gets out. The camera stays in the car as she walks up to Hank.
Yeah.
And the first few words of the scene are muffled because the camera is inside of the car still.
That is really good.
Yeah.
That is very ambitious camera work there. I love that. And yeah, I mean, then seeing Hank as such a perfect crank who looks like one of a million people you see in the internet videos these days on Karen accounts, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or protesting in front of the gates of Walt Disneyland.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, he just looks like disgusting. He's got a clipboard around his neck.
Oh,
and
so
he's boycotting Arlen Video. But yeah, Hank is taking a stand.
Hank Hill, I want you to get in the car right now before the whole town sees you.
No, I am not a quitter and I don't rent pornography.
I'm begging you, Hank. Pay the $40. We will buy a new dryer and you can finally change your underwear. Honey, it's the right thing to do.
Not until I prove my innocence once and for all. That's why I'm taking Arlen Video to small claims court, Peggy. I'm putting the whole system on trial.
Oh, you have not heard a word I've said. What do I have to do to get through to you? Do I have to take off my shirt and dance like the women in your movies?
I don't rent those movies.
Hank, if you want to keep up your silly little battle, then you go it alone. I am sorry.
So even his wife won't be on his side here.
Abandoned by everyone at the end. He's his darkest hour at the end of that too. I love the parting shot of him just in the dark in front of the closed Arlen Video. That's but I also just love that line by Peggy because it implies such innocence. Like she also doesn't know actually what porno is. She thinks it's like, oh, should I take off my shirt and dance like the women in your movies? Which she thinks like, oh, it's just like filmed strippers, perhaps like that. She doesn't seem to think much more than that happens.
It's like Dancing Girls.
Yes.
I remember like I had seen pornography at this point, and I think the topic came up, not me seeing it, but the idea of pornography came up with my mom, and she was like, well, they don't actually have sex in those movies, right? And I was like, no, they certainly don't.
Wow, that's how innocent.
Yes.
Man, that's so crazy. Like, no, I fortunately never really had to talk about.
You never talk about porno with your mom?
No. She did say like she would comment on erotic thrillers in theaters about like, well, you're not getting to see that kind of thing. But yeah, I kept that pretty private.
I don't think I brought it up.
No, my mom, I think the closest I can remember my mom mentioning that she saw the independent film Sirens and was shocked by how many naked women there were in it, which it's like a Hugh Grant and who else is in it? Portia de Rossi, and I think people rented it because like there's some supermodel does like her first nude scene in it or whatever. But
that used to be a draw. It used to be a draw in a simpler time.
In a also all these jokes about like nudity and stuff. This is the pre-Mr. Skin era, which was like you'd be told, rent the movie Sirens, you'll see that supermodel naked, instead of just be like, well, just go to Mr. Skin and find the 40 seconds that actress is naked and do your business.
Speaking of the beast, it's like, well, this actress was never naked in a movie, but we hacked her phone.
Yes.
So there's all of her nudes there.
No, that's horrible.
Yes.
That's so horrible.
I don't approve of that, by the way.
No, that's awful. I feel very bad.
That's just how easy. That's all your data is just available for anyone if anyone tries hard enough to get it.
No, that's been the most depressing one of those. The thing I talked about later previously of doing like podcast research on a celebrity and then seeing naked pictures when I'm trying to find information on them. I feel the worst of like, I've seen those hacked pictures in there too. I was like, I never wanted to see these. Google should not be hosting these things. It's a fucking crime.
Yeah, it's like revenge porn.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yes. I'm not blaming the victims, by the way. You should be able to take as many pictures of your butthole as you want to without anyone leaking them.
Yeah. That's what cameras are for.
This is a filthy episode of our podcast.
Hey, it's behind the paywall.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's their fault. They made it about porno.
Yeah.
Porno. Act 3 begins. Hank is sleeping on a chair in front of his mailbox. He's got a sign that says, honk if you hate Arlen Video. He's woken up by one honk, and Dale is feeling very bad for Hank because his trial is tomorrow. All he has is 6 honks and 1 signature, and that's on his leg.
Dang taggers.
So somebody graffito tagged Hank Hill while he was sleeping.
And I love that Peggy has joined them in the drinking. Like she's this whole thing is frustrating her too. And
yeah, she adds her "oh yeah" to the yep, mm-hmm.
It's really sad. All he wanted was for his clothes to be dry.
And Hank thinks he's got a supporter. He hears 3 honks, but it turns out to just be John Redcorn there to pick up Nancy. Heartbreaker by Pat Benatar is playing, and Dale laughs at Hank.
Oh, that's so good. That's so funny. He thinks Redcorn is approving of him when he's just like saying, Nancy, come out here. We're gonna
go fuck. Yeah.
And Dale thinks the joke is on Hank. That's so fucking funny.
So the next scene is someone leaves a stack of tapes on the Hill's welcome mat.
Wearing little white gloves to not leave fingerprints.
That's true. Very smart of Bill. And he rings the bell. The tapes are Cuffs and Collars, Jailbait, Hung Jury, and Illegal Entry. And Bobby is the one who opens the door, and he gets the wrong idea in our next clip.
Mom! Look what Dad got me. There's Cuffs and Collars and a whole bunch of other cop movies. Jailbait, Hung Jury.
How dare you try to expose my son to these police tapes that are so degrading to law enforcement officials. You never saw these.
Gotcha. It's a surprise. Don't worry, I didn't read the card.
I believe you, Hank. The answer is in the tapes. A friend. I need these back when you're done. A friend.
I love that second part of the note where it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to help you, but porn is expensive.
Yeah, this stuff's expensive. It's part of my collection, too. You know what? Thanks to the Supreme Court ruling not too long after this episode, titles like Illegal Entry don't work anymore because sodomy laws were finally struck down.
Oh, that's what that's a reference to. Okay, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it goes, it's not just a gay thing.
Was that like 2003 or something?
I feel like it was 03 or something, which was insane. It took that long, and then it would be another like 11 years till gay marriage. But fortunately, after that, no more homophobia mainstreamed in America.
It was all wiped out, thankfully.
Yeah.
There's a cut joke in this scene. Before Bobby enters, Hank is going over paperwork, and we find out that he's done a credit check on every employee of Arlen Video. He finds out that one of them has a Japanese car, and he goes, I can use that.
That's a great line.
So that's just damning evidence. Like a lot of places in America, there's probably still places like that, but in my hometown, if you had a Japanese car, it was a scandal. It was just like, they've got a foreign car.
Maybe Hank thought it would help him with the jury, the character thing against
Yeah, it's
him.
like, would you trust a man with a Japanese car?
Oh, no. Yeah, and not in Texas. No way.
And
Honda is a great car. If I ever own a car again, it'll be a Honda.
If I ever owned a car ever, it would probably be a Japanese car at this point. So Hank locks the door, closes the blinds, unplugs the phone in Luann's room. He's doing this all in Luann's room.
That makes it extra funny that it's like he's doing this dirty business on Luann's bed. And that he also has to put down that he's like, I can't let my family photos see this and witness this.
It's a great touch because they never took a family photo with Luann. So Luann has taped her head to a picture of Hank, Peggy, and Bobby.
Oh, that's so good.
A picture of her head.
That's so funny that it's such a sad little thing about her.
And Hank sighs. He pops in cuffs and collars. Then we cut to him grimacing and cringing at this plumber sex scene.
At the start of it, like from the dialogue, people are seemingly still clothed. Like it hasn't, they say like, well, I'll show you where the leak is.
Well, that could be where Bill left off.
That's true. I'm not even thinking about this in VHS terms. You know what? Maybe,
rewind. Be kind, rewind.
Maybe Bill actually left him at the best parts to lead him to it. He's like, if you just hit play on here instead of rewinding, you'll get to the key scenes.
We don't know how long this took because a very funny joke covers that up. It's one of the most subtle and clever jokes.
I love this joke so much.
That's now very anachronistic and it's hard to explain to modern people, but an amazing time cut joke. Normally you cut to a clock, you fade to a later time. The clock is blinking 12 on the VCR because no one said it. We cut from it flashing 12 to it flashing 12 more. So there's a time cut, but we don't know what time it is because no one set the VCR clock.
Yeah, that's so great. That's so and Hank is just the type who would never set his VCR clock. That's so funny. I think, when I got my own VCR, I did finally set the clock, but when it was the family VCR, I don't think it ever got set.
Oh,
either.
I was the clock setter because I was recording things using the timer.
Oh, I see.
And I had to make sure that thing worked. But yeah, this is an era in which the clock would flash 12 if you didn't set it to remind you like, hey, this is annoying. You must set me. My grandma didn't set her VCR clock. What she did was put a piece of tape over that so she didn't have to see it.
Oh, that's adorable, man. Yeah. And now I'd say the equivalent today is coming home and seeing that your parents still have on motion smoothing on their TV when it's like, God damn it, I turned this off the last time I was here. This is the wrong way to watch television.
Some other child must have changed this.
Also speaking, I'm going to steal a joke from the comedian Howard Kramer. He has a joke about working at a video store that rented VHSs of pornography, and he said that when you would get the tape backs from guys, you would know what moment they finished because, like, if you hit play on it without rewinding, you're like, oh, that's when he finished. Like it was information you didn't want to know but could know.
Pervs don't rewind.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, like the two best jokes are back to back because we get the time cut joke that makes no sense because there's no real like time passing that we can tell, and then there's a great joke that I didn't get the first time I watched it.
Me neither.
But in my 20s, I got it. So Hank's pen gets clogged while taking notes during this cop sex scene, and he's shaking his pen to try to get the ink flowing again. And that's when Peggy opens the door. She sees Hank doing this, and she goes, "Bobby, for the love of God, get out of the house!" And Bobby just goes, "Okay."
Oh, okay.
So in the deleted scene version of this, there's an animatic version that's much dirtier because in the final version of this scene, we don't see what Peggy is seeing. We just see, the view, the camera pointing at Hank and him shaking the pen. We just imagine Peggy thinks he's jerking off.
Yes.
But in the animatic version, we see Peggy's perspective, and it is Hank looking like he's jerking off.
The wrist action, he is hunched over at the edge of his bed, wrist action.
And it is more of a jerk-off maneuver. I think they toned down even the handshaking to make it like less of an explicit jerk-off motion, but it's enough to sell the dirtiest joke on Fox at that point, I think.
In the pre-Family Guy era of Fox. Yeah, I think it could be the dirtiest ever. I would bet there was a negotiation with the censors of like his wrist can move twice, but not 3 times or something like that.
A very careful dance. But this was on like after The Simpsons.
I know, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So funny and dirty. And that, again, Peggy is scandalized that Hank is seemingly masturbating. It's so funny.
But again, this episode ends. It's not commented upon, but Peggy thinks Hank was jerking off, and that he's a porn freak.
Which he is. I mean, he is watching the porn. He is seeing people fuck in front of him. Which I like that he never enjoys it, but eventually he starts to watch it with a detective's eye.
Yeah,
you know?
he's on the case. So what Bobby does, he leaves the house to go to. I mean, this joke pays off plot-wise. Because she says, Bobby, get out of the house. So he goes to where Luann is at the Arlen Beauty Academy. Bobby is getting his buzz cut trimmed by Luann. He doesn't really need a haircut. No. But he tells Luann, like, oh, yeah, they told me to stay away for 3 hours, so they must be putting together my birthday party.
I love it. She goes, like, I'm still supposed to charge you for the shampoo. I got so good.
So it's free haircuts on your birthday, but nothing else is free.
Not great training for her as a barber, though. I feel like anybody can buzz cut somebody's head.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is why she didn't stick around in beauty school. Also, it's not good. She's too good for beauty school.
Yeah. But in our next clip here, Hank finds a clue.
Here, let me hold that.
Thanks, officer. Say, are you a mounted police?
Not yet.
But a girl can dream. Wait a minute. That's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
You are hereby ordered to pay damages in the amount of $1.50 and return the plaintiff's sunglasses. Next case. Hank Hill versus Arlen Video. Mr. Hill, you allege that you have been the target of systematic harassment at the hands of a major international computer conspiracy known as the Beast.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill, why don't you just pay the $40?
Because I did not rent the tape, and I can prove it.
I love court scenes in King of the Hill. The one I'm thinking of that I like even more than this one is the low flow toilet episode.
Oh, right.
Where Hank has to prove they're not efficient, and by doing so, he's outing Peggy as taking huge dumps.
Right. Oh, God, that's such a good one. I forgot.
Like some of us have to flush 7 times.
Oh, fuck, that's funny.
Yeah.
Man, that's the he has to humiliate his wife. Again, I mean, that's an even more heightened version of this, of like to just to prove he is right, he must degrade himself. Like
it's such a great comedic idea where to prove that he is not like a newbie to porn, he has to prove how much he knows about it.
I know,
like,
yeah.
To prove I didn't rent the tape, I will tell you everything about that movie.
It's so, this is where it really paid off so much to me. I'm like, oh, this is a 10 times smarter joke than I thought too, but just so great that like everybody's humiliated at this court case. Even everyone else is looking at him like, God, this man's insane. He's even talking about the Beast to a small claims court judge, which is that was what a commenter let us know about when we talked about Judge Judy. He's like, yeah, you know, yes, these judge shows take advantage of people, but seriously, small claims court is perfect for television drama because it's probably 2 different cranks who both think they're right, and that's the kind of person you want to put a camera in front of.
And most people that don't have big personalities aren't going to go to small claims court. They're just going to say, "Oh, forget it. Who cares? It's not worth it."
They would have paid the $40.
Yeah.
They would have. Hank is giving up hours of his life, days, to prove this rather than pay $40 on a thing. That's so good.
And by the way, the judge in a very small role is played by the late Lynn Thigpen. She was in a ton of stuff, a character actor, but we know her best as the Chief.
Thank you.
In the early 90s kids game show Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
All
so
right.
that was her.
Thank you, Bob, because I actually, as you were you maybe saw me typing, I went to the IMDb for this because I was like, wait, isn't that the Chief?
It's the Chief, yeah.
There she is right there. Man, it didn't hit me during the episode.
Imagine she's talking to Gumshoes and not Hank.
It's funny. This is her in her much more buttoned down role than saying like, listen, Gumshoe. By the way, Carl Tart does one of the funniest impressions of the Chief out there.
Really?
He plays on Comedy Bang Bang, that comedy podcast. He has done the Chief character, and
really?
It's very funny.
I'm sure Scott Aukerman is just confused.
Yes, yeah, because it's a 90s reference, and he was like 25 when that series. He was writing for Mr. Show when that show was on TV.
There's a great Defunct Land episode about that series.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to learn more about it. But I liked it as a kid. I didn't know I was secretly learning.
That Thigpen lady, she ties it all together. If you take the Chief out of that, I mean, the host is also really good too. But I think you need the chief ordering around these kids, telling these gumshoes what to do.
Can't even think of what the host looks like. It's all about the chief for me and the cartoon villains.
He's like a white guy with a kind of an Eddie Munster, just a high forehead,
Okay.
I want to say.
I remember a hat on that man.
Sure, he'd wear a hat too. When, of course, we all remember Rockapella.
Oh, geez. How could we forget?
But anyway.
So Bobby and Luann, they've returned home. Nobody is there. There's no one parked outside. Bobby doesn't know where the magician could have parked.
Oh, that's so good. This whole sequence is so fucking funny.
Yeah, I want to hear the sound again.
Yes.
That sharp, like, bleh.
It's so good. And just also the animation on like how he jumps in like his hands out, like kind of crouched over.
Like just like the court scene, it's such a great comedic device because Bobby is not only expecting a surprise party, he is going to be the surpriser.
Yes,
he is the one jumping into a room.
So good.
He should be the one being taken by surprise, but it says he's the one jumping
You're
in
right. It's
to
all wrong.
surprise people.
He needs to walk in normally instead of going it actually ruins the surprise. Wow, you're right. He's getting this even more.
It's backwards.
I think my favorite, classic King of the Hill not paying off a joke kind of comedy of nobody's there. It's obvious no one's there. He gets in his room, and when he goes up to his closet, puts his ear to the door, he knowingly smiles to Luann like, I definitely hear people in here.
And starts opening it. Then we cut to the courtroom.
So good. You don't even get to see his disappointment, but just the smile on his face when we know there's no one in there, but he thinks there is. It's so good.
It's great that by the end, and we'll get to it, he still thinks this has all been planned out for him. Yes. It's all been a big mislead.
And it all pays off. He learned nothing about pornography. He stayed innocent.
So in our next clip here, Hank delivers some porn facts.
Cuffs and collars. The tape I never rented. 68 minutes into the film, actress Dee Dee Cupp bends over to shoe her horse. Now, if you pause the tape and look closely, you can just make out a tattoo on Dee Dee's left buttock that reads, I heart Charlie Sheen. Mrs. Cupp also makes an uncredited cameo in Jailbait, a tape which marks veteran porn star Fernanda Valley's return to the adult film industry on the occasion of her 18th birthday. Now, at the 70-minute mark, Dee Dee bends over to shoe a donkey. What do we see on her left buttock? Nothing. There is no tattoo. This can only mean that Jailbait was made before Cuffs and Collars. Now, why is this important? Because Fernanda Valley turned 18 on July 5th, 2 weeks after I supposedly rented Cuffs and Collars. Is it possible that I walked into Arlen Video on June 23rd and rented a movie that didn't even exist? I think not.
That's
so
great.
Wonderful.
I like how it gets smug. Like, is it possible?
Is it possible? That's so
I mean,
good.
now Hank. Okay, so the funniest part of that is like let's talk about the tape I didn't rent. So 68 minutes into the movie, so perfect, so perfect.
Yeah, it's so funny. And man, the way I mean, the names are funny too. Like Dee Dee Cup, which should be like double D Cup, not D. And then also the Fernanda Valley, meaning it's because in the San Fernando Valley is where a lot of pornography is filmed. So the person's fake porno name is Fernanda Valley.
They're very good.
Yeah, they're great. And then I think too, the 18th birthday joke is also a very dark one, but
yeah,
I think it's a reference to Tracy Lords.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
I share a birthday with Tracy Lords.
Wow, how do you like that? Yeah,
Happy birthday, Tracy. It happened this month.
In case you don't know, Tracy Lords she starred in a bunch of porn saying she was of age. Then when she turned 18, revealed that she filmed all that porn illegally and thus making her previous pornography actual crimes.
Yeah.
And so it was a big deal. I believe it, it was like porn front page news for a time. And now I think it caused, at least in the American porn industry, a lot more checking of IDs and making sure someone is definitely
and
18.
Lots of disclaimers and, older boys told me this, but often they will show show the date they filmed it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, if you're watching a full porno tape, you'll see that at the start. But in our on-demand clips world, it's so convenient now. You're not seeing that. You're not seeing dates and times.
I need hard evidence. Also,
hard evidence.
That's the name of another movie. And also, mention of Charlie Sheen. This is like 15 years before the Tiger Blood era.
That's true.
And then it's not funny anymore because he has HIV. So
that is sad.
The Charlie Sheen jokes aren't really doing it for me anymore.
But the gag that Charlie Sheen was good friends with this porn actress. But I actually was just watching a wrestler video. A real one. This isn't pornography I'm talking about. A pro wrestler, but he's friends with this woman who just appeared in the background of the video that I didn't notice, but all the comments were like, whoa, that's this porn star lady. She knows him. I was like, oh, well, how do you like that?
So the wrestling, was it wrestling?
This was an actual professional wrestler. This is not wrestling porn, which is also a thing.
No, I was going to say, do the wrestling and pornography worlds cross over a lot?
I think they know each other. Well, as I did a slight amount of research, this actress, Ryan Keeley, she has been in wrestling pornography. So I wonder if she got trained by actual wrestlers and that's how she befriended them.
I see.
But I think I then found a picture of her with at an event, a wrestling event with Minoru Suzuki, who's like one of the most hardcore Japanese wrestlers around. So I was like, oh, she's a real fan if she's getting pics with Minoru Suzuki. But anyway.
So I wonder what industry treats the employees worse, porn or wrestling?
Boy, tough. I bet in wrestling, I bet the highest paid person's getting more than the highest paid porn star. I bet. I
would hope so.
But
although now porn stars have like OnlyFans, and I think like a lot of them have pivoted just to doing OnlyFans because there's no boss, you set your own hours, and there's no like exploitation really.
Boy, I would bet in the pandemic too that probably really sped up the use of OnlyFans. And I mean, yeah, if you're just uploading it to a website the same as your boss is, like at the very least for pro wrestling, you need to have a rich person who can rent an arena and broadcast it on TV. You don't need, there's not as much overhead for pornography, not even close to it.
You don't even need to rent the mansion they film all porn in. You can just do it in your apartments.
Yeah. Or at the very least, someone's Airbnb.
Yeah.
Like, have you gotten a thing where an Airbnb has made sure to say, like, and this is not for porn, you cannot use this for pornography?
Oh, I don't think so. But maybe that's included in, like, parties.
I swear I've seen those warnings of, like, and obviously, well, they don't say pornography. They say you can't film
No
things
filming,
here.
yeah.
Yes.
I think maybe that was, like, one of the many bullet points on something I rented.
Which, hey, when we did that, we only recorded a podcast.
Yep.
We weren't filming anything.
We didn't break the rules.
Yeah, so shove it, buddy.
Another early thing in this show that really shows just where this takes place in or what time period it takes place in is that all Hank needed to know is the release date of Cuffs and Collars. You could find that online now if you wanted to.
Yes.
Like the store would say release date blank, wherever you're buying it. But he had to like literally sit down, do research on Fernanda Valley, and compared like her birthday to like the state of the tattoo or whatever.
And to know that when Bill gave him that pile of tapes, that Bill had already figured all of this out, like the puzzle all interlocked. Like the second he heard the name Cuffs and Collars, Bill doesn't react to it, but in his mind, he's thinking, wait, I know Cuffs and Collars probably because he bought it when it was new and he's a fan of the star. He's like, I know Cuffs and Collars came out after the date Hank is said to have rented it. So
yeah, and like, no, Bill gave him the right evidence because you have to think like these women were probably in 70 movies that year or something like that.
Hey, your working days, you can only film so many things. The work ethic on a porn star is equal to that of a podcaster.
That's true.
You got to pump out everything you can really quick.
Get it all out of your system.
Stockpile it, and at the end you feel dirty and tired as well.
So
I'm kidding. I love that's a joke.
I love porn.
Yes.
The pay for porn, everybody. That's the real
also do that,
lesson today.
Please.
But Hank doesn't have to pay for his porn because he didn't rent it. The judge rules in favor, and the judge says, "Let the record show that Mr. Hank Hill really knows his pornography." And Hank just goes, "Thank you, Your Honor." Like he's overlooking the fact of the literal thing that she just said and thinking that she's congratulating him for doing a good job.
That is so fucking funny to me. It is so good because this entire time, Hank is trying to make it so the computers don't think he does pornography. And at the end, a judge puts it on the permanent record that Hank Hill officially knows his pornography.
Yeah.
It's more concrete than even a computer to have it be in legal record that you know your pornography. But now Hank is thanking her. He's like, thank you, Your Honor.
It would also be a funny joke if Hank just said no.
Yes,
but
yeah.
in this case, it's even funnier because Hank doesn't realize what she's saying, and she thinks like, oh, you did your research, Mr. Hill. Good job.
Boy, you really do know porn. Yeah, you recognized, and on an SD TV, him being able to read that tattoo. I guess the camera's pretty zoomed in, perhaps. But
I think when she shoed that horse, they zoomed in on her butt.
Yeah, it's true. Yes. That was my favorite line. Are you a mounted officer? Not yet, but I'm trying.
Mike Judge and Kathy Najimy playing porn stars is always funny.
That's good. They're very flat acting is very funny. Yes.
So Peggy tells Hank it's time to put this nightmare behind us, and Hank says it's not over yet, and that's right after Bill grabs the tapes.
That's so good. I think it's obvious after the fact, but I love the reveal of like, oh, they were Bill's porn the entire time. Of course they're Bill.
He would be the porn freak in the alley. I mean, I assume Boomhauer has almost as much porn.
I bet he has a healthy collection, but also like he does have a swinging singles life, so he doesn't have as much time for the pornography.
He's making porn. Remember the camera?
Oh, that's right.
That's where the news clip comes from.
That's right.
Yeah.
So my.
So we cut to the Megalomart. The clerk is once again signing them up for a line of credit. This time they're approved because the computer gave them the smiley face.
That's so funny. Like, yep, see, the computer told me this. Like, I can't. It's good.
It's either a smiley face or a frowny face. And then Hank happily wheels the dryer out of the store, and then we get our final clip of this episode.
I can't believe they forgot my birthday.
Oh, don't worry. They still got a whole month to remember.
You got me, Luann. You knew the whole time, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't believe it. A dryer. It's perfect.
Yep.
This is the best birthday ever.
Great ending, because all Hank hears is Bobby saying a dryer. It's perfect. He's like, yes, it is, son.
It is perfect.
He doesn't realize Bobby thinks that he's getting a present. Bobby hugs the dryer.
It's also sweet because like Bobby, I hope actually gets in a month a real birthday present, and it's like, oh, okay, I get but maybe Hank and Peggy are like, well, if he thinks that's his birthday present, let's save ourselves some money, not buy a real birthday present.
We'll have an extra $80 in the bank account next month.
That's so, I mean, just the way he hugs it is so funny. And also, yeah, what a great victory for Hank. He gets to now have debt with Megalomart, and they have more information on him by being a credit card user at that place.
I just realized that by doing this podcast, we were put in the same position as Hank, and that we had to talk about how much we know about pornography.
That's true. Yeah.
But remember, an older boy told us all of this.
Yeah, we don't know these things.
Exactly.
People on Reddit had to explain that porn star to me.
Yeah. I'd ask a lot of questions.
But yeah, I my last thought I wanted to share was I do think that the cashier who ran the place, who, since he was the defendant in the courtroom, I think he must be the owner of Arlen Video too. I think he or another employee thought Hank was a lame guy, or Hank probably like pissed off the employee through something. And to get back at them, they fake rented a porno tape on his account to mess with Hank later. Like I could see a disgruntled employee doing that.
It could be foul play. You never know.
I think so. I now, with all my life experience, I do not think this was a computer error that started all of this. I think it was
spite.
A spite of some employee of Arlen Video. Hank pissed him off, and they got back at him by fake renting a porno on his account.
I believe the beast is real.
Yeah.
And some missed keystroke destroyed his life.
And he finally got back his dignity at the end by watching hours of pornography.
And by having a courtroom full of people see how much he knew about pornography.
I also love he takes a Polaroid of the screen too, because that's what you had to do then.
That's so great. And you know what? We're doing that today because no streaming service lets you screen cap anything anymore. So it's like, if I want to take a picture of this funny screen cap, I got to put my phone up to the TV like an idiot.
When occasionally I've wanted to be like, well, I want a video of this like Pinocchio scene, for instance. I just went to YouTube because I couldn't, it wouldn't record my screen on Disney Plus. So
YouTube will let you still.
YouTube, and I hope YouTube never takes away screen recording. Just let us take a fucking screen.
We're gonna
video.
post clips and screenshots no matter what.
Yeah, it's for who cares, man. Porn stars, they put everything on their Twitter pages.
That's true.
You're not worried about it.
People have told us this. We don't know this actually.
I feel bad. I do feel bad for their Patreon. I looked into this too because there was a lot of talk of Patreon, how they treat the adult accounts on Patreon and how tough it is for them. I was reading an article about that and how the one of them was mentioning it's hard enough because I make these things exclusive just like we do. And for say if you just have pictures of your naked body that are exclusive to people, it is instantly if you're popular enough to be a popular Patreon person for that, there's obviously going to be people oh, okay, cool, there's my pictures and on Reddit, there you go, or just on some other site, and there just take away all the value of the product the person made on their adult Patreon.
There's also a lot of legal stuff happening now because of Sesta Fosta, and it's
right.
that was a law to try to fight online sex trafficking, but it also destroys the lives of legitimate sex workers and people trying to make their own pornography and stuff like that. It's too complicated to go into on this podcast, but if you want to learn more about it, you can look it up online. It's not a good thing. President Trump signed into law. It can't be good, right?
Yeah, but as a person on Patreon, I feel camaraderie with the adult-only accounts that are just trying to do the same as we are. But
we're trying to sell our smut all over the place to your children.
We do it with podcasts about King of the Hill. They do it with, drawings of furries fucking each other.
Everybody needs their content.
Yeah.
But please don't get off to this.
No. Hey, don't tell me about it if you do.
Well, if you do, up your pledge. How about that?
Hey, okay.
And also don't tell me.
Yes, yeah.
But we'll see you guys again next time for the final Shinsal. Take care.
Peggy, you don't think I actually rented...
Oh, Hank, I don't care if you did or you didn't.
Well, you should care because I didn't.
Oh, really, Hank? It doesn't matter.
It does matter. It's important you believe me when I say I didn't rent the tape.
Honey, okay, I believe you. Now, I just have one question. Did you rent the tape?
No!
All right, then.